We are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May 18th work session of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilman Lees.
Present.
Councilwoman Overby.
Here. Councilman
Bragman.
Here.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started with today's meeting, I have some sad news to bring to the community. We've lost Sharon Rack, longtime East Hampton Town employee. Our condolences and prayers go out to Sharon and to her family and friends. And I would just ask that we just take a moment of silence at this time. Thank you. Today's meeting will begin with a public portion where any member of the public may call in and address the board on any topic. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And then we'll be discussing the following topics. We'll have Jeannie Carrozza, our Chief Purchasing Agent, discussing bids. We'll have the banning of sale of helium balloons in East Hampton. Susan McGraw-Keeber will be presenting that. I know she has a number of folks with her for that presentation. We'll have a discussion of the environmental assessment form for the Georgia Pond Harvester with Senior Planner Brian Frank. We'll have a further discussion on legislation of accessory buildings and pool houses with Senior Attorney Nancy Lynn Thiel. We'll discuss amendments to the solar code with John Jelnicki and a discussion overview of the Army Corps Fire Island to Montauk Point PPA agreement with John Jelnicki, followed by liaison reports. And we do have a few resolutions. So at this time, Michael, do we have any callers on the line?
Yes, we do. We have 3 callers. I could unmute the first caller right now. The last 4 digits of the phone number are 8960.
Hi, my name is Ken Hicks. We've called before, but you told us to check back regarding whether the bathrooms will be open in September at Ditch Plains Beach and Gin Beach. Has any decisions been made on that?
So we expect to have a regular full season this year in terms of the beaches and the operation of those public restrooms. So I think we had closed them a week or 2 early last year, but this year I think our goal. This year our goal is to have a full season, and things seem to be opening up, so we are shooting for that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so when you say full season, does that include all of September?
I'm not actually sure. Maybe Councilman Lees knows the answer to this, the exact date that we would normally close those restrooms at Gin Beach. But generally a couple weeks after Labor Day, I believe.
Typically, it's 2 weeks after Labor Day to the last time, which is the last weekend of when the lifeguards are on duty. Last year, we did extend that an extra weekend because of the difference based on Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez's smart move in which, schools didn't line up with our closing of our beaches.
Okay, so, the 2 weeks after Labor Day are the two that concern us. So you're saying they will be open for the 2 weeks after Labor Day?
That's our intention.
Okay, well, can that change? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be
I suppose it could. I certainly hope it won't, but everything's been changing with regard to this COVID time. So we hope to be back.
You mean because of the COVID? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I understand that. If COVID becomes a problem again, that could change, is your point.
Exactly, but we don't expect that to be the case. Certainly expect to have we expect to have the full season.
Okay.
Cover the whole thing. We're gonna go Tuesday to Monday. Let's cover it.
Okay. So it's just 2 weeks. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Do we have any other callers on the line? Michael?
Yes, we do. Moving on to the next caller. The last 4 digits are 2411. I'll unmute that now.
Hi, my name is Jolyn Hobson, and back in March, I submitted a letter to the board to honor my great uncle, Lee Hayes of Tuskegee Airmen, for his heroic contributions that he had made. And being a longtime resident of East Hampton, I prepared a video of all of so many people that he had impacted who have resided in East Hampton, residents who have lived in East Hampton, and how they have impacted his life. And I'm speaking on behalf of the family. We are trying to honor his legacy. And I just wanted to follow up and to see if the board had received the letter, as well as if you had any opportunity to watch the video.
Yes, Jolyn, I did receive it. I did watch the video, and I was fortunate enough to have met and spoken with Lee during his lifetime, and I think that commemorating his life of service to our community, our country, is very appropriate. And I think at this point it would be just a matter of finding the proper location, and I completely support doing so. And I think that's a discussion that the board will have to continue. I have a few ideas myself, and I'd be happy to talk to you about those, whether the family thinks they're appropriate. But
Okay.
I do appreciate your bringing this to our attention. And
Jolyn, I just wanted to jump in and say that I communicated with you. You had a couple of different ideas. I think one was renaming a street, another was a bust. And both of those appealed to me, actually. I thought, frankly, just off the top of my head, I thought a sculpture in Town Hall, a bust, would be, I think it would be a great reminder of his terrific service. I was just watching something on the Tuskegee Airmen, and it's an amazing story. There are many amazing stories among the airmen. So I'm very open to the idea. I think it's probably long overdue, and the recognition is certainly highly deserved. So I'm open to it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the family is definitely looking for something very visible, because he's done so much. But one of the reasons that we initially mentioned the street name, because one thing is that all of my family had grew up on Town Lane that we nicknamed Hayesville, and basically we have one house standing on that street right now, but that's where Lee Hayes had built his home, and that's where we kind of grew up as a family. And we're seeing everything that our family, his father, as well as Girlie Hayes, who also helped with naming the streets, and we thought it was really a beautiful idea, because I don't know if you know where Town Lane goes. There's a street that intersects with it, and it's called Jenny's Path. That was named after Lee Hayes's mother. And then when you get to the end of Jenny's Path, there's a street that goes off called Queen's Lane, and that was named after Lee Hayes' sister, my great aunt, Queen Hayes. So one of the things that we definitely wanted to know, and to start bringing back some of our culture into the East Hampton, and to be able to come back and see him and honor him. And my grandchildren did that video. They wanted to honor him, and so they're the ones who actually requested it. And I thought that was a beautiful thing to have the generation want to acknowledge all of the heroic ideas, and with me being a military service member as myself. So I appreciate that, and I guess the next thing I will do, you would, I guess, follow up later on, and then I can communicate to the family.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to follow up with you. And thanks for that little bit of history on the street names. I did not know that Queens and Jenny's Path were both named after Lee's relatives. So thanks for expanding my knowledge about that and the rest of us as well.
If you include us all on the email, we can get it done. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate the.
Thank you, Joe. You take care.
Thank you. Have a great day. You too.
Thank you. Michael, do we have any other callers in the line?
Yes, we do. One more. The last 4 digits of this caller is 3843. I'll unmute that now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Schaefer. My family and I are longtime residents of Montauk for about 15 years. I don't know if you guys remember from 2 weeks ago when I called to express my disappointment with the town of East Hampton's handling of our annual dumpster pass that my senior citizen father bought, but we still have not received. I just was calling to give the town a further update that as of now, we still have not received said dumpster passes. It's over 2 months since the check was cashed, and I thought it would be appropriate to continue to give the board updates until such time as this matter is resolved. I did finally receive a comment from the town clerk reiterating what you mentioned at your last meeting, stating that we would have an opportunity to purchase another dumpster pass, and if the second dumpster pass ever arrives in the mail, that we would be refunded. We're not so satisfied with that solution. However, we did actually go out and buy another dumpster pass. And I guess the point of my call was, how long do you think, from the information I received from the town clerk, that people are still receiving dumpster passes from 2 months ago? How much longer would you think a reasonable person would wait until we can conclude that these dumpster passes are gone?
Yeah, and I can thank Keith. Sorry, thanks for calling back in. I don't know about the Postal Service. Perhaps Carol can tell us, what she's seeing in terms of response time for the mail. I know that she had a number of people who took weeks and weeks for their mail to arrive to them. So I don't know if that's an ongoing situation or not.
I had one the other day that got mailed out in February and the people just got it.
So unfortunately, that is the state of our U.S. Postal Service now, still trying to recover from COVID and budget cuts. So I think it might be important just to wait just a little bit longer. And I'm really sorry about the inconvenience that you've had to endure regarding this. Again, this is the clerk's purview and not the town board's, but I think keeping us informed is helpful.
Carol, is that the only one? I just wanted to ask a question. Is that the only one that you experienced that had that kind of a long delay?
No. No.
You're seeing it with others?
Yes. I actually had a gentleman the other day that bought the second one and came back and got his money back. And his was almost 4 months. And, they are non-refundable and non-replaceable. So I don't know how we're going to be able to do that.
Well,
we'll see when we get.
Having heard two telephone calls from Keith, I'd be willing to take him at his word and give him a refund, frankly.
Oh.
I mean, it's not I think it's quite reasonable to wait 2 months. I know I'm going to hear it's,
You are.
Precedent, but he seems, he's 2 calls to the town board.
Okay, Jeff, but you're not in my office, so we'll talk about it at a different time. And it has nothing to do with Mr. Schaefer. It has to do with every resident.
I know, Carol. I'm not trying to step on your toes. I promise you. And I know you're doing a very hard job, and I know how hard you're working. I don't mean to step on your toes.
May I ask a brief follow-up question to the comments?
I'm sorry?
Just really quick. May I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
Great. I'll be brief. With with the statement that was just made regarding the unreliability of the post office in East Hampton, is there any conversation within the board and the town in general to maybe, I don't know, stop using the postal service for official business like that so we can avoid future problems like this if the post office is as unreliable as the town is stating?
So, again, we weren't actually open to the public. So in terms of getting permits back, there were a couple of options. One, that people could mail them, or if they left their phone number and whatnot, they could be called and made aware that their permit was ready. And we did have people picking up in person at a drive-up window. I don't know about the future reliability of the Postal Service. My guess is and hope is that it will improve. I think at one point there was something like 70,000 postal workers out sick with COVID nationwide. So, hopefully we'll be back to normal. This has put a lot of stress on everybody, and we're all doing the best we can here. So we appreciate your patience and the update on your situation. And hopefully you will be receiving that permit in the mail, and you can get reimbursed for the other one that you just purchased.
Okay.
It's really up to the town clerk. She's a separate elected official, and she runs that department autonomously, separate from the town board.
Yeah, you guys have made me quite aware of that, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate the town supervisor following up with me outside of these meetings just to check in to make sure to see if everything was resolved. And I thank the town clerk as well for, returning an email to me finally. So I'm grateful for any kind of communication.
Absolutely. You take care, Keith.
Thank you very much.
Michael, do we have any other callers on the line?
No, we do not.
Okay. At this point, I think we can move forward with our topics. And first up, we have Jeannie Carosa, Purchasing Director. Hi, good morning, Jeannie.
Good morning. I
Yes,
just had a few bids today. First, we have the supply delivery of Ford OEM parts, and that's through Newlands Bayshore Ford. A couple of extensions. First is for the airport mowing services at the East Hampton Airport, suburban maintenance and landscaping. And then we have an extension of a proposed for an RFP, which was the Energy Initiative Support Services. And that's with Renewable Energy Long Island Incorporated. And then I have several notices, a couple of printing bids, one for miscellaneous forms and the other for police forms and brochures. We also have some more miscellaneous kitchenware items for human services to bid. And lastly, our agreement for engineering services for town projects will expire in July. So I have an RFP for the professional engineering services for town projects. And that's all.
Any questions for Jeannie? Okay, thanks so much, Jeannie.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have a presentation. We have with us today Trustee Susan McGraw-Keever discussing proposed ban of the sale of helium balloons, and she has a number of folks with her as part of this presentation. So welcome, Susan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me back. I appreciate it. Supervisor Van Scoyoc and the town board members. I'm here today to present another proposal for the ban of helium and gas-filled balloons, both latex and mylar, which is a DuPont trade name, in the town of East Hampton. This would not impact the village of East Hampton, but in many ways, this is another step forward to make sure that our waterways, our landscapes, our avian and marine wildlife are safe, and that we have a cleaner environment, which is what, as a trustee, I do, and as a public civilian, I do a lot of the beach cleanups with Surfrider. Very important. They are very hard at work doing that. So I wanted to just go back in time to 2019 for a moment and just let you know that I've been following Assemblyman Fred Thiel's efforts and also now Senator Anthony Palumbo on the ban on the intentional release of balloons. That is currently with the Environmental Conservation Department on both, but I have two bill numbers for you if you're interested. They are S5308. That is the New York State Senate bill. And then the Assembly bill from Fred would be New York A05902. So I'm hopeful that we will see a ban on the intentional release of balloons in the state of New York in the forthcoming days. I've also sent to you balloon alternatives for celebrating. I came up with that list with the Avenue School. They asked me to come up with some ideas, and I always ask the kids when I've been able to visit schools to come up with their own ideas, because there are so many creative children in our community and they have great ideas. So I sent that list to you. Again, it's from me, 25 ideas, but certainly there are so many more. I am coming to you with this because I think it's another way to educate the public about the harm that balloons actually do. And Mylar in particular seems to be the more popular balloon in our community. They are fossil fuel petroleum based, and it is a stretched plastic. And it is a DuPont, as I said, name Mylar. So it's a very bad product because both latex and Mylar are non-biodegradable. The Balloon Council, I've done some research with the Balloon Council, and their new way of describing balloons is to make sure that you dispose of them responsibly, and that when you have inflated balloons that you would use a weight to hold them down so they don't fly off. Well, that's fine, except they are not biodegradable. And when latex is in its natural form, it is biodegradable. Once it becomes a commercial product, such as a balloon, it's not. And we are a community that pledged. I was at the Climate Reality Project. As you know, I was trained in LA under former President Al Gore. And the map that was shown to 2,200 of us in attendance showed at that time, 3 years ago almost, one dot on the Eastern coast that had committed to become fossil fuel free. And I was very excited to see East Hampton was that dot. So I'm coming to you on a small scale level with the petroleum-based fossil fuel balloons, Mylar, which are in abundance on our shorelines. They wash ashore, and they are flying in our trees. They're dragging on our birds. So I'd like to just tell you briefly, I have Defenders of Wildlife. Balloons are the third deadliest form of marine litter. I have, that is from Defenders of Wildlife, also ABC Science, Yale. I sent you an article called We Composted Biodegradable Balloons. After 6 weeks, here's what we found, and they were not degrading. Ocean Conservancy, of which I am a member. High-flying balloons pose a definite downside for ocean wildlife, and we are a coastal community, so that's very important. New York Sea Grants article states that latex or Mylar balloons, when they float away, become nothing but debris, single use. And, they can't be saved as souvenirs. People just let them go, or they get thrown in the garbage, and then from the garbage dump, the birds fly by and get entangled in these things. Also, we know that our whales have often ingested tons of plastic and rubber and balloons. They do get caught in their intestinal tract and end up strangling them. And so that is that. Now I have a very short video that slide presentation that I created, and I cut it way down. I do not have any pictures that show harm to animals or birds. This is strictly a slide presentation of local photographs that people have submitted to me. And thank you very much, Darrell, for your help in this, Darrell Godfrey. So I'll go right to my PowerPoint and show this to you. And then here we go. Can you see this? No, I have to do screen sharing. Okay, let's see. Screen sharing would be here and there. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. All right, so here's our beautiful logo. And I'm not representing the trustees, although the trustees support this next proposal. I'm here really as a member of the East Hampton Energy, Sustainability, and Litter Committee. And thank you very much, Sylvia Overby, for helping me to push this along in our committee. And thank you to all the committee members who signed on unanimously to support this effort. Okay, so this is really telling. This is our trustee, Tim Garneau, and he's on a beach cleanup. I think this speaks volumes to what's going on in our community. And I believe this was through Surfrider. His wife is our president of Surfrider Long Island chapter. And this is on one beach cleanup. These are all Mylar balloons, by the way. And when the coloring fades away, it becomes translucent like that. And that looks like plastic, and plastic looks like jellyfish. So once they sink into the ocean, they become jellyfish to turtles and all sorts of marine life. So I think this picture really, really tells the story about what's going on here in our community. Next picture, this is my picture. This is a recent cleanup with Kathy Burke-Gonzalez and Kate Rogers, myself, and many of our friends from the community. This is Louse Point. And Eskrenta and I were on this leg of the property. Here's a balloon I found in the woods. Happy birthday. Obviously, it's not so important to the person whose birthday it was because they just let it blow away into the woods. Here is a picture I took on the Accabonac Harbor salt marsh when I was doing my mosquito larvae water sampling. It's just one picture, but I see them all the time. I carry a backpack, and into that backpack goes all the Mylar and latex balloons and ribbons and trash that I find. But this is typical. Every week we do this on Monday, as you know, the sampling for Suffolk County Vector. This is also up at Gerard Drive. I took this picture and it was caught in the bramble. It's very old and you can see the ribbons are still attached. Here's a graduation celebration. And it really was very important that these balloons be at that graduation because now they ended up in the bramble in the woods. So I don't know how many balloons are here, but you can see the ribbons and they're pretty filled with helium, which is also, as we know, the hospitals use helium and they must have helium. And it's actually a local store in town said that they had delivered so many balloons over the pandemic. I think it was up to 50 bunches a day and they were running out of helium. So it's single-use waste. Here's Osprey Nest. Thank you, Darrell Godfrey, for taking this picture. This was filled with ribbons, as you can see, and balloons. And the osprey would actually pick this up and use this to create their nest. And that's not good for the offspring. It's not good for the osprey themselves. Darrell Godfrey at the welcome, our beautiful pond. This is how you are welcome to East Hampton with Mylar balloons. Runaway Mylar balloons. Here is our bioswale, and it is brand new. It is being done over on Methodist Lane. And there's the red balloon just dumped in there. And to the left, you can see a duck swimming. So it's possible, I don't know, but you know, a duck might find it curious and suck it in and become suffocated. Oops, okay. This is just, latex balloons that are left over in the bramble with the ribbons attached after they've come down. Here's another picture of 3 Mylar balloons ending up in our salt marsh, or maybe I'm not sure where the location is. This is Darrell again, but these are 3 Mylar balloons that would suddenly become trash. I am a certified Patio rescue diver, and so I see what goes on underneath the water as well as on the land. And I can tell you that it is pretty horrible, not only balloons, but plastic bottles. And everyone knows that we have a severe problem with plastic debris in our oceans and waterways. Darrell cleverly did this. What you see on the right is a Mylar balloon. Is there any reason to pollute like this? And I think that most people would agree this is not something that we want to see in our community. These are about the person who notified me. This is 3 Mile Harbor. and sent this picture to me, and she assumes by count there are about 75 balloons here. This would be balloons that are attached for a celebratory reason, and they just blew onto her property. I believe this was sometime in March, and it's debris. And even if you puncture these balloons and put them into the trash, they are going to be things that animals will fly into and take away, ingest. And it's just, we don't need debris. We're a beautiful community. Here are latex balloons that are caught in electrical wires. And in Southampton some years ago, July 4th, there was an explosion and power outage to thousands of people. There have also been explosions in California, in several states, and in Nassau County. Not too long ago in Queens, there were about 1,500 people without power. So again, this is another reason to ban the sale and distribution of gas-filled and helium balloons in the town of East Hampton. This is my photograph on a cleanup with Surfrider at Montauk. Happy Thanksgiving. Perhaps not for the wild turkeys that are running around or our marine life. More debris on the beach, oops. During the summer, these are Mylar balloons that someone nicely put together and to take to the garbage, I hope.
Susan, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yes.
but I think we get the picture in terms of
Okay.
the different locations that this debris turns up, and the ubiquitous nature of it. And I think did you have also as part of your presentation some other folks here as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to end with my one picture that tells me that, says everything that I need to say about this. And there it is. So I'd like to we have the Avenue School, we have the East Hampton High School, and the middle school, David Cataletto. So I think the voices of children and students are really terrific, and I would like to ask that they come on now to speak to you.
That's terrific. We look forward to hearing from them.
So Susan, stop your screen share so we can get all of their faces. That'd be great.
All right, hold on one second so I can do, where is my screen? Nope.
I took
Is that
care of
done?
it. I took care of it, Susan.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Hey, guys.
Welcome, everyone.
Be very respectful.
So Susan, do you know who you want to call on right now?
Well, David Cataletto is a teacher at the middle school. He teaches history, and I would love to have him. I see him right there. So, David, if you want to.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us on. We just, I teach 6th grade here, and we've been doing a lot of research, and we've been doing a lot of discussions and opinion writing, and we really support the ban on these balloons, and especially the Mylar balloons in our town. We want to keep it beautiful. We have a lot of Surfrider members here that do beach cleanups, and they find, way too many of these balloons. So we give our support to this cause. You guys thumbs up? You agree?
Yeah. Yay.
All right, there we go.
Hey,
6th grade.
terrific. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We have Teddy Hogbin, who is from the Avenue School, and Teddy created the petition, which I did sign for you, Teddy. And so I'd like to introduce Teddy now. And I think Briar, your teacher, is with you this morning as well.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Okay. Hi, Briar. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Briar.
Morning. Thanks for having us. I'll pass it off to Teddy in just a minute, but I'm Briar DiTomaso. I am faculty member at Avenue Studio Hamptons. And Teddy's going to take away talking about a project that we did called for our collab project, which is our service-based learning project here. Teddy, if he's able to share his screen, I think he's got a few things to show you guys, if that's okay.
Great.
Hi, good morning. I'm Teddy. I'm in 7th grade at Avenue Studio Hamptons. For our collab project, we have been focusing on doing work with the ocean and protecting it and keeping it clean. After we spoke with Surfrider and the East Hampton Town Board of Trustees, we've created a petition to help ban the sale of gas-filled balloons. I would like to share the petition with you now. This is our petition, and at the moment, it has 133 signatures from people in East Hampton and around the Suffolk County area. And we have created an email campaign and a social media campaign to help boost this petition and help it grow. And also, my classmates and I have created around a 3-minute video while we were at the beach cleanup to share more about what we've been doing.
That's terrific, Teddy.
Hi, I'm Emilio, and I go to Avenues the World School. So today, me and my classmates are here to educate you guys a little bit about the problems with East Hampton and their beaches relating to balloons and how our collab class is helping to prevent that. So what you might be wondering what collab is, and it is an interactive class in which we work with different organizations to work on and help out with different initiatives and projects to help out and better the community of East Hampton. So the current project that we're working on is helping to ban the sale of gas-filled balloons, and what that will do basically is ban retailers from selling balloons with gases such as helium, which is one of the most popular. And this will be a great contribution because every year people release large quantities of gas-filled balloons up into the air with no real concern, but these balloons will go up into the air, then eventually sink down into the ocean, and then slowly come to our shores, and they can harm many wildlife, from fish to turtles all the way to birds just flying around.
So far we've done a couple of things throughout to start this project. So first we created an Instagram account to spread awareness on the social media platform. Then we started a petition to gain support on our cause and our project. And lastly, we did our beach cleanup, which is why we're on the beach today, and we are making take-home kits so we can encourage our cause and project at your household.
This cause is important to me because the environment is connected to so many things I enjoy and value, such as snowboarding and surfing. I go every weekend. This cause is important to me because we are doing our part to protect the environment and to stop destroying our planet.
This cause is important to you and our community because we are trying to make this area a better place. Whenever I go surfing in the summer, I see multiple pieces of trash, and it's upsetting because it shows that we are polluting our local environment. With your support, we can help make our home cleaner and more sustainable.
Thank you for watching our video. Single-use plastic balloons aren't only harmful to our oceans, but they're also harmful to our landscapes and waterways. And also, shiny balloons, when stuck in electrical wires, can cause power outages, explosions, and fires. And because of this, I'd like you to consider using some alternatives to balloons, such as homemade decorations, flowers, and signs. Also, if you could take a minute to sign a petition, that'd be great. Thank you so much for watching, and I think together we can make a change.
Thank you so much for watching. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Teddy?
I just want to commend you for doing this and thank you for putting this together, for reminding us all that this is our planet and we need to take care of it. It's not going to happen by itself. It happens when all of us, see something like this. And coming from someone so young, it means a lot to me personally that you are doing this for us, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Teddy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Teddy, thank you and your classmates and your teacher Breyer for putting this presentation together and joining us today to help inform the public about this very important message about keeping our environment clean and protecting our wildlife as well. It's terrific work.
And I would also like to thank Breyer and Teddy and your school for doing all this work and for helping keep our community clean and for speaking out. It's wonderful, and I so enjoyed working with you, and I hope that we will get a chance to meet in person. You keep up the good work, okay? And I'm going to share your petition on social media, so let's stay in touch, and maybe we can do a beach cleanup together.
Yeah, Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Teddy. Thank you, Briar.
So we've got, is Aubrey Peterson on? I know we've been communicating back and forth. I don't know. Hey, Aubrey, how are you?
Hi, if I can, my name is Aubrey Peterson. I'm actually a social worker at the high school, but I advise the Environmental Awareness Club. If I can just sort of have an ad hoc comment to say, as a resident of Town Lane and the greater Hayesville area, I love that you all are maybe considering doing something in Mr. Hayes' honor, and would be happy to drive down Hayes Lane or whatever it is at any time. So I hope that will be considered. I just want to read a quick letter that one of our Environmental Awareness Club students, Gianna D'Agostino, wrote, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sky. Dear Town Board members, we, the members of the East Hampton High School Environmental Awareness Club and the members of the East Hampton High School community, support the proposed townwide ban on the sale and distribution of helium and gas-filled balloons. Long-lasting balloons are able to travel thousands of miles and pollute the most pristine areas of our planet. They enter our local ecosystems and surrounding waters and kill off animal species, which is detrimental to both our local environments and the planet. Balloons are also a waste of helium, which is a finite resource. We respectfully request that the town considers assisting our local balloon selling merchants to discover alternatives to balloon sales in order to support the merchants' economic vitality. As the successors of and stakeholders in our town, we believe that it is important to help reduce the amount of pollution that goes into our environment, and this is one step in the right direction. We respectfully submit this letter signatures that support the ban, and I'll give it over to Sky Tansman, a sophomore at this time.
Hello, Sky.
Hi, I'm a sophomore at East Hampton High School, and today I represent the 85 members of the East Hampton High School's Environmental Awareness Club. Our advisor, Mr. Peterson, gives us members plenty of opportunities to help within our community, yet this balloon ban was one that truly caught the attention of our club. Several students were instrumental in taking action to support this proposed ban. Gianna D'Agostino, who wrote the letter that Mr. Peterson just read, as well as myself, Sadie Kober, Christina Barada, Matt Gabor, Ava Arcoleo, and Colin Harrison were able to canvass the school and gather 385 signatures, possibly more forthcoming, for this petition against the sale and distribution of helium and gas.
Oops. Your audio went off. Sky, your audio went off.
Excuse me, Sky, we can't hear you anymore.
Oh, she may not hear us either.
Birthday or graduation party, and they may be harmless, but they are detrimental to our ecosystems. The Oceans Conservancy annual International Coastal Cleanup reports that from 2008 to 2016, almost 300,000 balloons were found along U.S. beaches. Additionally, helium is the only element on the planet that is completely non-renewable as a resource. Once it's gone, it's gone. East Hampton does not need balloons to decorate or celebrate special occasions when the cost is the health of our local environment and our planet. This ban would be immensely beneficial for our community and its future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sky and Aubrey. Thank you, East Hampton High School Environmental Organization.
Yes, thank you so much.
Great.
Yep. And I hope we get a copy of that petition so that
I'll mail it in. A couple of the pages are remote, but I've got a big pile here, and the rest will come to you guys later.
All right. Thanks so much. And the letter from Gianna.
Of course.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Darrell, do you want to chime in? Darrell is a friend and a Facebook friend who posts pictures of balloons, and I, although I'm liking her pictures, it's because I think it's awareness that we need to respond to. And so, Darrell, if you want to say a few words.
Thanks, Sylvia. I appreciate it. I've been out on a photo shoot all morning, so I missed a good deal of this meeting, but I'm so impressed by the high school students. I think it's just remarkable. Every time I see an event with a balloon on the street, I drive up and I say, I would take your picture, except you've got a balloon there, so I'm not going to take your picture. I'm trying to, have them take it personally. No balloon. I take a picture. It's swell. Driving on the bioswale the other day, Sylvia, you saw the picture.
Yep.
There was a balloon in it. They hadn't even finished planting all of those 20,000 little baby plants, and yet there's a balloon floating in the water, looking like food for some duck. And I'm so impressed with everybody's efforts. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. And when you see them, pick them up. And if you can or are willing to, suggest an alternative to anybody who will listen. Thank you.
Darrell. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for all the photographs you sent from my presentation.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were, I mean, I have like a few thousand more in case anybody wants.
Okay.
That's actually sad to hear, but
it's horrifying. And of course, the guys, the fishermen are out there, they're outside of land, and I was on a whale watch 2 years ago, and they're pulling in big balloon sets that are floating around out there, outside of land. And maybe they don't come from East Hampton, and maybe they come from New Jersey, but they're on their way to Nantucket, and Nantucket has banned them. So we don't need to crap up Nantucket with our balloons, and New Jersey doesn't need to crap us up. So there you go. Ban balloons.
Thanks, Darrell.
Thank you.
Darrell.
Love your enthusiasm.
Anyone else on this topic before we move on? I think, we heard the message loud and clear. I know from my own experience, when I do get out on my boat in the bays, I can't go out a single time without finding a balloon somewhere. And I tend to pick them up. And when I was recently on Saturday, I actually pulled the boat out, getting it ready to go in the water. I had a garbage bag still on the boat, and it was just filled with balloons from last year. So it's definitely a problem, and single use, and it's just garbage, basically. And that's really not the best way to celebrate people or our climate or environment. So thank you all for that. We'll certainly consider.
Can I just add one small thing? Because I know that balloons are a tradition for all of us for celebratory purposes, but we can't help but recall that when the ban for smoking in restaurants and bars came into play, a lot of people said they would have to close up, nobody would come, but that wasn't true. It's all about educating and realizing what's good for our community, our planet. So, restaurants and bars all survived, and everybody is happy that they have clean air to breathe in those establishments. So balloons are just another thing to start thinking of as being not good for the community, not good for the waterways, not good for our beaches and environment, and taking the next step to being a trendsetter, if you will. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. I really appreciate all the efforts, and I thank you so much, Sylvia, for pushing this along. And thank you very much, Supervisor Van Scoyoc and the board. And I hope to hear good news.
Thank you, Susan. And Aubrey, I see you're raising.
I just want to add to what Susan said, just to say that already, our students are educating people in the school community here that prom and graduation, all those things, not have balloons. So as Susan said, there is work being done, and we're moving forward. So that's great. So thank you, Susan, and everybody else.
Great, Aubrey. I'm glad to hear that news about the proms and graduation. And thank you so much for participating today. Do send me the information that you're sending to the town board, because I will make sure it gets up onto our new website.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Before we move to our next agenda item, which is the George Pond Harvester Environmental Assessment Form, do we have any callers on the line? Any members of the public calling in, Mike?
Yes, there are 2 callers on hold. I'll start by unmuting the first caller, whose number ends in 3691. I'll unmute that now.
Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for supporting Susan with all of this. It's Lena Tabori. I was the chair of the Energy Sustainability Committee last year when we sent this through, and I cannot be more delighted to see it in this work session. I was totally blown away by Teddy, and I went straight away to change.org. I put in ban the sale of gas-filled balloons in the search bar. I immediately came up with his brilliant petition, signed it, sent it on, posted it on Facebook. This is what we can all do. Let's just spread this word Susan is just dead right on this. Balloons are not biodegradable. Mylar is a fossil fuel petroleum-based plastic. Couldn't be worse. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks for calling in, Lena.
Thanks, Lena.
Take care. Michael, do we have any other callers?
Yes, moving on. The next caller's last four digits are 9872. I'll unmute that now.
Hi, this is John Chimples. Just wanted to say, obviously, I totally support a ban. It's crazy how many of these balloons are in the dunes all along Shadmore and Rhinestein Park. My question was, and maybe you guys talked about this and I just missed it, has legislation been drafted? Is the town board moving in the direction of a ban? Where do we stand on that?
So John, thank you for asking that question. I don't think we've had the town board deals with a lot of really important issues, and this one may not rise to the top as far as an important issue, with other things like getting sand on the beach when we need it, or dealing with airport. But look at the response that we've gotten, not only from the Energy Sustainability Committee, but from our kids. And I think this pushes it for me to get the legislation written and to make sure that it is put out for public hearing as soon as possible. So thanks, John. I think that's I need to hear that, and the town board needs to hear that there's community out there that's ready to pass legislation on this.
May I just jump in for 1 second and make a suggestion, which I had made earlier several months ago? Southampton put a question up on their website asking the community how they felt about a ban on balloons. And they had an overwhelming response, positive response. So we might want to consider that. The town board may want to consider doing something on your website. I think I'm probably going to want to do that on our trustee website as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for that suggestion, Susan. So, and John, thanks for calling in. We appreciate your comments. And we did ban the intentional release of balloons, and I think this is the next step that the board will take a look at.
Yes.
Great, thanks, guys.
There's certainly plenty of great alternatives to celebrating people's happy occasions and without balloons. So I don't think it's going to be a huge detriment to the way we live.
No.
Michael, do we have any other callers on the line?
No, we do not.
Okay, well then I think we can move forward with our next agenda item. And we have a discussion of the Georgia Pond Harvester Environmental Assessment Form. And as the board's well aware, the Friends of Georgia Pond, in conjunction with trustees, have for a number of years now worked on reducing the negative effects of Clodophora and blue-green algae blooms in Georgia Pond, which tend to make the pond anoxic and reduce oxygen levels, and can even create blooms that have enough toxins in the water to affect human health and even be fatal to animals. So in an effort to reduce this, break this cycle of algal blooms, there's been a long-term study by removing this material, this macroalgae, from the surface using a mechanical harvester, removing that nitrogen, phosphorus out in that way. There's been some noted improvement in water quality. This has been a temporary project, if you will, a pilot program, and they're looking for a longer-term permit with the DEC. And also, we have been doing some review. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian Frank, our senior planner.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, board members. Brian Frank with the Planning Department. As you know, the Planning Department has prepared a draft environmental assessment form for the board's consideration. That was done around this time last month. The Friends of Georgia Pond made a presentation at the zoning board's April 27th public hearing schedule, where they ran through a PowerPoint of the history of the project, as well as a number of slides. I have that PowerPoint available to at least share some information if the board is interested when I share my screen. And the zoning board has since made a written recommendation to the town board supporting the harvester application as proposed by the Friends, which is for a 5-year maintenance permit, for lack of a better word. I don't know if you want to go right into any questions you might have about the environmental assessment. If you want me to provide more background about the project or the problem that Georgica Pond, as well as coastal bodies all over the nation, have been experiencing with harmful algal blooms.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's helpful from a public education standpoint. I'm sure the board has, familiarized themselves with this over the last several years and has been tracking the science and, the data in response. But if you'd like to give a little more information background.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I have one of the slides up from the PowerPoint presentation that probably has a lot of the information that summarizes the project. Unfortunately, harmful algal blooms have proliferated all over the country for more than a decade. They've affected both tidal and freshwater bodies, from bodies as small as Wainscott Pond all the way up to the Great Lakes and many of the nation's major estuaries. They all seem to have one thing in common, and that's they're fueled by nutrient enrichment. Pollutions, either from point source or non-point source, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, unnaturally fuel the growth of plants, especially algae, to the point where it creates severe water quality problems. Microalgae are single-celled individual organisms. When they proliferate in blooms, there are a lot of what we call blue-green algae blooms, most often, although they're not really algae. Many of them produce gastrointestinal or neurotoxins, as the supervisor mentioned a little bit earlier, that are harmful or even fatal to wildlife, domestic pets, and definitely harmful, if not potentially fatal to humans as well. Macroalgae are algae that you can see with the naked eye. They're larger plants. They don't just turn the color of the water a different color, but you can actually see the plant material. They create problems for water quality as well by interfering with surface water currents, shading out desirable submerged aquatic vegetation, and when they die, their decomposition consumes oxygen, creating hypoxia or anoxia conditions in the water quality, which stresses or kills marine life. That decomposition also releases the nitrogen and phosphorus that's bound up in the plant material that can be that can fuel the next algal bloom. So that, if I'm doing justice to the history of the project, was the impetus of the harvester application, which was to remove the plant material from Georgica Pond before it can trigger one of these harmful algal blooms and ecological crisis. So the harvester has operated for 3 years, from 2016 to 2019. It operated, I believe, on a more limited basis last year in just Georgica Cove. And there's definitely a correlation between the operation of the harvester and an improvement in the water quality. it's understandable why the Friends of Georgia Pond and the trustees are enthusiastic about the results of this project, but it's the planning department's opinion that this enthusiasm should be tempered with a recognition that there is a lot that we don't know about these systems in general. Closed coastal ponds like Georgica are probably the least studied and most poorly understood natural habitats that we have out here on eastern Long Island, or maybe nationally. They don't get the national recognition of our estuaries, our tidal wetlands, or more substantial fresh water bodies. There are three target species associated with the operation of the harvester. One is the Cladophora, that is macroalgae. The other two are vascular plants. The vascular plants are plants that, just like trees and grasses, there are specialized plants. They have life cycles just like the terrestrial plants that are all around you. They grow, they flower, they have specialized parts, and all three of these species are native. I think it's pretty safe to say, and I'm going to just use a different photo from the PowerPoint presentation. This area in the bottom right slide here is what appears to be a large algal mat of Cladophora algae, and it's pretty safe to say that even a native plant, which the Cladophora is in this quantity, is at a balance with the ecology of the pond. And the removal of that material, it's hard to identify an environmental impact. The other two species that are targeted by the harvester are sago pondweed and clasping leaf pondweed. They are native vascular plants. The submerged aquatic vascular plant that most people are familiar with is eelgrass, and both the sago and the clasping leaf pondweed provide a lot of the same benefits that eelgrass provides. It is a food source for aquatic organisms. It's a nursery area for developing organisms. It puts oxygen in the water column. It sequesters carbon, and in some cases, it even helps buffer the effects of acidification. Although I don't know that is the case for sure with sago and clasping leaf. Sago has been identified as one of the most important, if not actually the most important submerged aquatic vegetation for overwintering waterfowl in North America. Both species are identified as having significant wildlife benefits. The harvester removes anywhere between 30 and 90,000 pounds of plant material per year wet weight. That 90,000 pounds wet weight is about 27,000 pounds of dry weight plant material. It's proposed to operate again from July through September, about 7.5 hours a day for about 450 hours during the course of the season. And harvesting has been used as a water quality control tool for a long time. There's not an awful lot of information out there about it. The largest amount seems to come from the state of Massachusetts that actually did a generic environmental impact statement on pond management techniques. But in general, harvesting and collecting is usually limited to short durations of time, and usually, not always, but usually targets invasive aquatic plants. If you know anything about aquatic, invasive plants, they can wreak havoc on ecology, and aquatic invasives like Eurasian milfoil and hydrilla and fanwort are no exception. They're devastating both ecologically as well as to the recreational value. This project is unique. I don't know that there is another project like it anywhere in the country that's operating on this scale and this duration in a water body that's 290 acres like Georgica is. And the planning department is encouraging a little bit more collaboration, more peer review, more independent oversight to get a better handle on how the project can go forward and reap the benefits that it's providing, and ensure that there aren't any adverse impacts that haven't been identified.
Thank you, Brian. I think we've also, as part of this process, had the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals review this to comment to the town board. And as I understand it, we've received comments from the board, and that as a result of the discussion, the Board of Appeals enthusiastically recommends the project, and that the East Hampton Town Board approve the harvester. And that was based on their deliberations and review of the objective evidence that the water quality of Georgica Pond has been improved with the operation of this device. And I think it's important to state that, while we've seen improvement as a result of this technique, it's really treating a symptom, and it's not addressing the root problem, which I think we also understand is primarily the result of road runoff into the pond, as well as septic systems from area residences. And I know that there's been a concerted effort by the Friends of Georgica Pond to help amplify and get involvement with our septic upgrade program, where new alternative systems that reduce nitrogen are being installed. And I know that there's over 20, I think it's maybe even over 25 systems that have been installed around the pond since the program began, and more on the way. So this is really an intermediate step to keep the oxygen levels and the nitrogen levels in balance. Also, trustees have been very actively involved and have coordinated the opening of the pond, which, having the additional salinity, seems to slow the rate of growth of some of these algal blooms. That's been demonstrated as well. So it's not the answer to the problem. It's really literally a tool in the toolbox to keep things from becoming from hypoxia, starting in the water's becoming anoxic, to having fish kills and die-offs from that, as well as preventing, protecting public health with the reduction or elimination of these harmful algal blooms. So this is something that we've looked at a number of times, and I fully support this effort. I think it's a great example of community members coming together to work directly with government to attack and solve a problem. Again, I think this is just one step. I look forward to us continuing to improve water quality. We have a number of water quality projects around Georgica Pond that we're cooperating with Friends of Georgica and the trustees. The Route 27 rest area is an area of great inputs. We've looked at the culverts that lead into the pond as well with the village, and they're working to address those inputs. And then again, with the improvement to septic technology around the pond, I think we're making great strides, and look forward to a time when the pond is really rejuvenated to the level it should be at. Are there any questions for Brian from any of the board members?
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to get back to the point you were making to be sure I understand it. I know that from the beginning, we worked on this couple years ago. You really wanted to see a comprehensive management plan back in the day, and this is certainly more comprehensive than we had in the beginning years. Is your concern that the harvester may also be removing native vegetation that is beneficial? That's what it sounded like to me, that was your cautionary note.
Well, it is removing native vegetation that's beneficial. What we don't know is what the impact of that is, and there are a number of unanswered questions. It's unclear if the clasping leaf pondweed and the sago pondweed are contributing to the nutrient enrichment that triggers the algal bloom, or if they're bycatch. We don't know how much of it can be removed without having, or what the impacts of reducing the amount that's available to wildlife is. We don't know if the harvester can operate for a shorter duration and still stave off the harmful algal bloom that triggers an ecological collapse. So there are just, I think if you look at it objectively, there are still some significant unanswered questions that should be approached with a certain humility and a recognition that we don't know what we don't know.
Are you in touch with
you can't know everything going forward, but what we do know is that when the pond becomes anoxic and that when the algal levels of cyanobacteria reach a certain level, it's not safe to the wildlife in the pond. It's not safe to the people around the pond. And so I think, there's certainly more, ongoing research that we could do. And I think there's been a number of suggestions as to what potential mitigation can be in operating this. But the benefits certainly seem to outweigh any demonstrated potential negative impacts to date. But it's something, we should probably keep our eyes on going forward.
I just want to continue the question for a minute, Peter, if you don't mind, with
sure, go ahead,
Brian as the expert here. I just wanted to ask,
if I could stop you for a sec, Jeff, I don't want to put myself forward as an expert. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a real, Dr. Gobler is a world-renowned expert, at least nationally, probably world at this point, on water quality issue and especially microalgae. But I don't think anybody is associated with this project as a real expert on Georgica's actual aquatic ecology, and that information has been elusive.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That. No, that's okay. I've actually worked with Dr. Gobler on a couple of other cases involving coastal ponds. So I'm very familiar with him and his work. I was actually just going to ask you, as our sort of man on the spot, if you don't want to be called an expert, and I understand that. Do you get to communicate with him and get feedback as we go forward to kind of follow up on the stuff? Because in order for us as town board members to understand it, we sort of need the translation that comes from the planning department, and you seem to be the man on the spot for that. So do you think you can have follow up on those issues with Dr. Gobler and maybe they will become clearer in time over the use of the harvester?
Well, I've had a dialogue with Dr. Gobler for a long time, so I would answer yes. I don't want to speak for him, but I would assume so, yes. He hasn't been my primary point of contact so far with this project. It's been primarily with Sarah Davidson, the Friends of Georgica Ponda's executive director. But they're I think they're pretty responsive if I were to reach out to them.
Yeah, I've communicated with her too, and she's always been very responsive. And Dr. Gobler seems pretty responsive as well. But it's in the long haul, it would be interesting. I think it's important to see if we can find out the answers to those questions. But I am glad that we have a more comprehensive management plan. I know that is something that you pushed for years ago, really, when I first got elected, actually, we talked about that. I think that is a good start. And I'm also happy to see the focus on changing the septic systems, because that's obviously, looking at the percentage of input, that's a huge input on Georgica's and a huge cause of its problems.
In the preliminary watershed model, it is the number one input source of nitrogen, and it makes sense. If you recall, it really has only been over the last 20 years or so that Georgica Pond has had public water available. So as I know all of the board members know, when development back in the day, if you didn't have public water, you were reliant on an on-site water supply well. And the way you would cite that is you would put the well up by the street to be upgradient of the septic system, which always pushed the sanitary system closer to the water. In Georgica, that's compounded by that dramatically fluctuating water table that you have in that watershed. When the inlet stays closed for a long period of time, the water table along the shoreline in particular rises by several feet. So you really can't emphasize enough the importance of replacing the septic systems that are close to the water, that are close to the shoreline, in or close to groundwater, and or lack a tank. And the property owners that replace those with the new IA systems are really have a much larger impact on improving the water quality than some of the other properties. Every little bit helps, and everybody in the watershed that upgrades is contributing. But those older septic systems that lack a tank or are close to surface or groundwaters have a disproportionate input of pollution right now, and those are the most important ones to upgrade.
That's a really good point, Brian. And I know, the high groundwater table is an issue. And so those that put in those shallow drain fields, they're seeing extremely high uptake of nitrogen with the IA system combined with a shallow drain field. So, there's certainly more that we can do. I think we need to keep a careful eye on any potential impacts upon, no matter what the reason might be. And I'm really encouraged by the amount of progress that we've seen in the last several years. And a lot of that is really credit to the Friends of Georgica and the trustees working cooperatively with the town. And we look forward to continuing that relationship.
I think one of the things, Peter, you actually mentioned also was that the legacy drainage projects, and you mentioned by the rest stop, but let's not forget about the Cove Hollow legacy drainage project that we have already been working on very diligently for years, that comes off of the fields and up from closer to 114 that goes directly into, without any filtering, into the creek over there. So, it is many different ways that we have to attack this. And again, it's not the solution, but it is one of the actions that the town and the town board can take to get measurable benefits from it. Thank you, Brian, for sharing everything today.
Do we have any other comments from the board or questions from board members? Okay, thank you very much, Brian, and we'll move on. Do we have any callers on the line, Michael?
No, we do not have any callers at this time.
Okay, I think then we can move on to the legislation for accessory buildings and pool houses.
I just want to raise, at some point, you're going to have to kind of make sure everybody goes through the EAF, and any questions get to Brian. If the board could just look at the EAF, if there are any questions, so he can prepare a final for the board.
Right. Let's try to do that so that we can have that on Thursday's meeting.
Okay. Good.
As board members, I know you all have looked at those EF forms already, but just if you had anything else that you wanted to add, please get back to Brian, as John suggested.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks again, Brian. And we have Nancy Lynn Field, our senior attorney, with us today. Nancy Lynn, welcome. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I'm picking up where we left off last time on accessory buildings. And And I don't have any great pictures today, but I can do a screen share to walk you through what decisions I'd love for the board to make so that I can get the legislation ready for you to consider. So I'm going to pull that up, my screen share here. Here we go. So we're talking about, you would discuss the fact that you're interested in possibly putting some language in our code that allowed for some separation of between accessory buildings. So as you can see, our current language is that it is accessory buildings. They have to be 5 feet from the main building. So that's the current language. The first proposal is just to create a requirement that all buildings, accessory buildings from each other, also have to have that 5 foot separation. And if anyone is looking for an exception, they are able to go to put an application into ZBA to look for variance from what will be the new language in the code. The next 2 proposals are if the board is interested in putting in some actual exceptions in there so that there would almost be, as a matter of right, exceptions. One of the exceptions would be to allow for any open air appendage, which is basically your porch or patio, which is considered a structure, could be next to or part of an accessory building, as long as it's just the one, so that you just share the one wall between the 2 structures. So one would be the whatever accessory building, whether it's a pool house or whether it's a shed, whatever, would be allowed to have a covered porch or a screened patio, but only one and not more than that. And then the third proposal would be allowing for there to be allowing for an exception as long as the combined square footage of the accessory buildings does not exceed the accessory building maximum, which is the 600 square feet. So you could have a 200 square foot pool house with another 200 square foot patio or porch, so long as your combined square footage was under the 600. So I don't know if you want to go through all of these sections, or if you want to stop at each one and discuss these proposals and see which one seems to be the way that the board is looking to go forward.
It might be easier just to take them one at a time.
Sure.
I don't know. Any other board members have an opinion on that?
No, that's okay. Yeah, let's. Yep.
So the 5 foot separation, we require that currently from accessory structures and principal structures. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But
we do not
require it between accessory structures. And I guess to me that would be appropriate to do, but with the caveat that if it's multiple structures under one roof that don't exceed the 600 square feet, it seems like they should be able to be joined together, or less than 5 feet separation, provided they're considered as one overall accessory. Mm-hmm. Any other board members have an opinion about that?
Okay, so just to be clear, so you're saying the limit of accessory structure square footage would be 600. So you could have a 200 square foot pool house with a same roof that hooks up to a 200 square foot potting shed, let's say, and that would be okay.
Well, that's up for discussion if the board want to do that.
But that's what you were describing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, we've made a very clear limit as to the size of an accessory structure, and that's 600 square feet, and that no pool house can be more than 200 square feet. So the portion utilized for the pool house has to be limited to that 200 square feet. But if you had a common wall that wasn't connected through, and you had a tool shed or some other type of structure, as long as the aggregate under one roof was less than 600 square feet, I don't really see what the problem would be.
Well, you could also have a second accessory structure under the example you gave. You could have the pool house, you could have a potting shed, like 200 square feet, and you could have another porch on the other side for 200 under what you're just proposing.
Right, as long as, I mean, you're still limiting the total accessory structure to 600 square feet, and the portion utilized as a pool house, under the definition of pool house, still couldn't exceed that 200 square feet. And I think you'd have to have it separated in such a way that you don't have interior doors for expansion of that use into the adjoining portions of the structure.
So if you had a garage that was connected to your pool house and your garage is 600 square feet, there needs to be 5-foot separation and no common roof.
Correct. In order to have the pool house, yeah. You couldn't have the 600 square foot garage connected to the pool house, because now you have an 800 square foot accessory structure. It's one structure, in my opinion, if you connect it.
Okay.
And you couldn't roof it. You couldn't roof it and connect it over the 5. You'd have to be at least 5 feet away, and you couldn't roof it or connect it. Is that correct? In other words,
that's the way I would approach it. If you have a roof over multiple structures, then I
agree.
would consider that one structure. So if you have a 600 square foot garage and 200 square foot pool house, and you have an 800 square foot roof over the top, it's really, to me, it's one structure at 800 square feet.
And maybe even more, because your patio could also have your open air appendage, or patio could also have a roof on it, and that could be 200 to 300 square feet for shade purposes. So that
would have to prohibit a common roof, because that would be, I think, I think that would be something that homeowners would sort of naturally envision. If they wanted a pool house, they might roof a portion of it, to connect it to the garage. We have to make sure they can't do that.
Or to an accessory. All accessory structures are not garages.
I know.
And we'll get into, I think she's going to talk about that a little bit later, but
there might be a little bit of difference between the accessory structure of a garage and a house. And there's a natural breezeway that it's non-conditioned space. That's sort of used a lot within design. I'd be more looking at, if it's not a garage that, your primary garage, meaning an ancillary 600 square foot building, or if it was your bathroom, your outdoor pool house on there, then not to have combined, roof coverage on there. I think that's what I was initially envisioned. But the design element of having a garage that might be detached, that's connected to the house, that's a very common element in design right now.
Right. So the difference with the house is the breezeway, if you will, connecting garage to house or some other accessory structure to house. That actually is makes it part of the principal structure, provided that the length of that breezeway is no more than twice the width, I believe, Nancy Lynn.
Right.
If I'm wrong on that.
Otherwise it becomes a room.
And so again, you're talking about principal structure, roofed connection to principal structure versus between accessories. And I think that's where you draw the distinction.
So let me ask another question. Should the separation between structures be more than 5 feet?
What does the New York State fire law say?
5 feet for principal and accessory. And I don't know, I mean, you could require more, but I'm not sure what the justification would that be.
But the fire code says is that when you are within 10 feet of two structures, the fire rating, it has to be more a higher standard. It used to be 5 feet, And that's where we got the 5 feet separation originally when the code was written here in the town. So we took from that restriction and put an automatic 5 foot separation in. The fire code has since been amended. State fire code has since been amended, and now that higher level of fire retardant building requirement is now if it's within 10 feet. So they're more stringent than they used to be.
So you could still,
Does that suggest
the
you
town
follow
code, you
that?
could do it as 5 feet, but you would have to have a higher rated firewall in that accessory structure between the principal.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or in the principal structure between. You have to choose one or the other, right? It doesn't have to be both.
Right.
Are we allowing or contemplating allowing, I guess we are, 2 additional accessory uses if you have a pool house or a shed of some kind that's, not 600 square feet. We're talking about theoretically allowing an accessory use to be attached on each side, like you could have an outdoor.
Well, I don't believe there's any prohibition to the number of uses within an accessory structure. I mean,
As
you
long
could
as
have
you
a
don't
garage with a potting shed and whatever else.
Well, I'm thinking pool house, outdoor kitchen, patio. So you could have a 200 square foot pool house, outdoor kitchen next to it, a couple hundred square feet, and then a 200 square feet enclosed porch or patio, roofed patio.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't go over your lot coverage, you could have multiple.
Yeah, you could have a bunch of 600 square foot accessory structures. What we were seeing is how they were cobbling those together through a common roof or, backing up another structure to a structure without having the 5 foot separation.
Yeah, there's the health and safety issues with fire safety on there that were being designed into them, in which there's not as much oversight.
Right.
I think if they become attached to each other and the aggregate, exceeds 600 square feet, that's where you're going beyond the intent of the law was. And that's the issue that we're seeing, I guess.
So you can keep the structures. You can have multiple accessory structures, but they must be separated by 5 feet and possibly 10 feet according to the fire code.
Less you'd need more fire protection is what.
Correct.
On that was.
But in no case closer. Well, we need to decide this. In no case closer than 5 feet.
Right.
So I mean,
I like
all of those.
that the pool house can be 200 square feet with a so the common roof over a pool house, a potting shed, I'm making these things up obviously, or a kitchen and an open air patio, that can be an aggregate of 600 square feet with a common roof.
And perhaps the way of
That's
defining that is the drip line of the roof determines the area.
Do you want to say common roof, or do you want a combination of them all? Because I'm envisioning if they do a break in the roof, then are you saying that patio area is not part of that aggregate that has to be within 600 square feet?
I think we're thinking that it does have to be in, and I understand what you're saying, that, we should have language that
maybe the
doesn't
roof
let them evade it by changing where the roof line is.
Wouldn't that be the same 5 foot separation though? I mean, wouldn't you have to have the roof separated by at least 5 feet?
Yeah, the roofs would have to be separated.
10 feet unless they have a higher fire rating?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would think that's the way you solve it, not just a break in the roof from one level to a lower level or whatever.
Right. So if they are not 5 feet apart, a minimum of 5 feet apart, then they're an aggregate square footage that has to come under 600 square feet. Now that separation has to be all of the elements of those structures, whether it be the roofs or the foundations or the walls, there has to be a 5-foot gap. So you can't do a 5-foot gap in the foundations and then throw one roof over top that's not separated. So
That's right.
Or have the two roofs staggered over, hanging over each other, which I'm sure some
Right.
would
So
claim they're not.
now I'm a little unclear. Are we not permitting a patio, for example, that's not separated from a pool house? Can you have an attached patio?
You can have an attached patio as long as the attached patio square footage as well as the pool house square footage is all within the 600 square feet.
Okay. And you can't, second question, can you access that patio through the pool house, or does that have to be an outdoor use?
Oh, I think you should be able to, access it as long as it's under that 600 square foot aggregate.
Yeah, you can access it, the pool house from the pool patio.
Okay, so you could have also a kitchen, for example. You could have a pool house of 200 square feet that's got a bathroom in it. You could have a closed porch next to it of 200 square feet, and you could have a kitchen, a roofed kitchen, outdoor kitchen, or actually, could you have an indoor kitchen on the other side for 200 square feet? So you'd have 200, 200, 200, all under one roof.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful with that too, because that 200, in 200 square feet, you could put a nice little bedroom cottage in, and that's.
I thought there was a prohibition to having the kitchen, an indoor kitchen.
Well, that's coming up. But we also have the pool house itself. If you're going to have plumbing in a pool house, you're limited to 200 square feet.
Yeah, and
So
I think that just should be then 200 square feet, not in the 600 square feet, because that then what's the difference of the ancillary 600 square foot building? We just now allowed for a 600 square foot pool house.
Yeah, we did. You're right.
So you're not allowing, right.
Not if you don't have direct access from that 200 square feet into the other building. You'd have to leave or go outside.
Yeah, well, that's what that's what I was just asking, and you answered yes. You could access it from inside the pool house.
Oh, you talked about an outdoor patio, is what what you said, Jeff. So it's the outdoor patio. Yeah, you walk out of your pool house onto the outdoor patio. But what I was referring to was, if you had, the potting shed sharing a common wall with the pool house, that, just not to allow direct ingress from the pool house into the other portion of that structure. Otherwise, it would be.
Yeah, but I think that's gonna
be considered a pool house because it has the interior connections.
Yeah, but
the outdoor kitchens seem to be a big item these days. So that's.
We'll get to that. Apparently, Nancy Lynn was prepared.
We have more on that.
That is well.
I think that there's a way to do that, Sylvia. I think what your concern is if I add language that, when you're talking about the limitation, the 200 square foot pool house being allowed to have plumbing, that if you have any other interior space that is going to be within 5 feet, so another accessory building within that doesn't have the 5-foot separation from a pool house with plumbing, that actually has to either have that 5-foot separation or be an open air appendage like a patio or a porch. That it cannot be.
What about
you can't have a common wall?
What about a common wall that you can't access through, though?
Yeah, my experience would be is that common walls magically get a door between the two.
Strange. They morph.
Well, what about those people who don't have the magical ability or desire to put in those doors, who might want to use the space separately?
Then there's a 5-foot separation that they have to consider in their design between the two separated rooms under the 600 square foot rule.
So basically, you're saying no adjoining structure to a pool house.
Right.
If it has plumbing. If it doesn't have plumbing, then you can
not really by definition of pool house at that point, is it?
Most people want plumbing in their pool house.
I think that's what differentiates pool house from any other accessory structures, the indoor plumbing.
Well, not
Yeah,
really.
it's allowed.
I mean, some people have a pool house that literally is nothing, but open sliding glass doors to a lounge area, and I haven't seen plumbing in them, but maybe that's coming later too. I don't know.
Some of those pictures we saw at the last meeting look pretty elaborate.
Pretty developed and pretty. It's what we want to avoid for safety reasons first, and for density issues, and for water issues, clean water.
Do we have a consensus on how to differentiate pool house area from other uses, and whether or not it should be completely separated or have a solid wall between, with the aggregate not becoming more than 600 square feet?
Under one roof is what we're saying.
I don't know, Sylvia, I don't know what the under one roof does. Are you saying that you could, as long as one of the structures, as long as you put a patio between two structures that has, may not have the same roof, it has a different roof, or is an open, lattice type thing, that suddenly now we're talking about, you could do 600 on one side, have this patio with a lattice or a arbor type structure, and then another 600, and
no, that's what we're trying to avoid.
Right. So I don't think under a common roof gets you anything. I think if you're talking about 600 square feet, and that's the maximum, regardless of whether it's roofed or not, or common roof, then you've given the building inspector the ability to say you can't clump these structures together in this manner.
So 600 square feet is the maximum, and this 5-foot separation, that sort of takes care of the aggregate part, doesn't it?
Can I understand this? That's a total maximum, or can you have several 600 square foot sheds? And
you can do that. Right now, you can do that. You can put as many accessory structures as you want on your property, so long as you don't exceed your building coverage.
Yeah, that might be something we should consider. I don't know. These days it's sort of anything that can be done must be done is the motto. I'm a little worried about proliferating accessory structures,
Well, that's been in the code forever, that we could
sort
have
of a pavilion style.
I mean, that's another whole discussion, I think.
Yeah.
And at this point, it sounds like, and we haven't heard from everybody, but it sounds like having a minimum 5-foot separation between structures is something we want, and that no aggregate of structures exceeding 600 square feet can be built. One of the problems we had or saw was that you have a pool house and you have another room, and there's a overarching roof between the two. The two walled structures are 400 square feet, but the roof covers another 600 square feet or 400 square feet of patio, thereby sort of making it a room, really. So I think we wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why so do we need to address that, Nancy Lynn, that roofs have to be separated and buildings have to be separated by 5 feet?
That's what this is doing. We're basically talking about the third proposal that's on the screen, with a little additional language there, but talking about accessory buildings detached from the main building shall not be less than 5 feet from the main building and or from any other accessory structure, except that 2 or more accessory buildings, including open air appendages such as porches and screen patios, can be built without a minimum 5-foot separation, so long as the total aggregate square footage of the accessory buildings is less than 600 square feet. Now, there is some question of whether or not we want to make sure that we allow for breezeways, which I will include in there, because breezeways often have connected and could be confusing, that to make sure that breezeways are still allowed as they currently are under the code.
So breezeway, shouldn't the breezeway though only be that connection between accessory and principal structure?
Yeah, I think so.
Breezeways are supposed to be correct. Mm-hmm.
So if we keep it to that, and again, I personally don't have a problem with having a pool house with some other use in some other segregated part of the structure, provided that that aggregate structure doesn't exceed 600 square feet, and that there's no use directly between the pool house and that other space.
Mm-hmm.
So I can add, you are permitting, like I could build a pool house and then right next to it, attached to it with no distance, I could build a screened in porch. Wouldn't be heated or air conditioned, but it would be a screened in porch that could be quite livable. And I hate to go back to my glamorous kitchen example, but you could put on the other side a glamorous outdoor kitchen, which certainly seems to invite, occupancy, which we're obviously not trying to encourage.
So again, I wouldn't have a problem if that screen porch connected to the pool house was 400 square feet or less.
Yeah, I think open air appendage is different than in my example, or anyone's example. If you have a 200 square foot pool house and you put right next to it with the same roof, a 200 square foot shed, and then the rest of under that 600 square foot roof is, where are we, 100 square feet of patio, then you still have a pretty good size 500 square feet with plumbing under the same roof, and a room that could be, that you say is for potting, or an office if you want it to be.
I think the danger we're looking at is occupancy of these, buildings, a la Vita Gerolitis.
Well, let me, if you don't mind, if I'm going to move along, see if some of the other changes that I'm suggesting help maybe clarify it in totality here. The next section is on the current language when we talk about, whoops, now I've lost it, hang on. I'm so good with screen share until I'm not. Here we go. Talking about floor area, gross floor area, the current language, as you can see, has doesn't really explain habitable area, other than to say for buildings which are not habitable. So what I would suggest, and there's a couple different ways to do it, is to make clear that accessory structures such as pool houses are not considerable habitable buildings. So that when in determining gross floor area, it's clear that those are calculated under the paragraph B there. So it's every story of the building measured outside plus the area of any cellar. Those are they're in square feet. So how those are determined. The second proposal has that, but allows for, excludes an open air appendage. But my understanding, it sounds as though you prefer to actually keep that the first proposal, because you're not excluding open air appendages from the square footage. You would like to include those covered porches so that they're determined in that 600 square feet. So you wouldn't want the second proposal, but we talking about habitable or living area. this is our current definition, the area in square feet of all floor levels of any dwelling unit measured from the inside of all walls that's habitable. That may be a section where we can add in there the intent that accessory buildings or structures are not intended to be habitable space. I think that Councilman Lisa talked about the fact that there was, it was conditioned space, and we can use some language in there on that and be clear about that we're talking about accessory buildings and pool houses are not intended to be habitable or livable space. So that's clear. And then the other definition I have here was to be more clear about what an open air appendage was, in case, because I think we had looked at open air appendages, and I know that the ZBA deals with this. If someone says it's going to be a screen porch and it's an open air appendage in that manner, and it's seen that way, and it's permitted that way. And then what happens is that it then gets those sliding glass doors, and suddenly now it is a completely enclosable space that lends itself much more to be a dwelling area. The reason that the open air appendage was exempted out was that has been the general practice of the planning department for a while now, to exempt open air appendages such as screen porches or patios or roof patios from the square footage. My understanding is that the town board would prefer to not exempt it, but just put a limit on allowing for it within that 5 foot, so long, because it has been exempted from that 5 foot separation. Open air appendages have, by practice, not by necessarily the language in the code, but the interpretation of the language in the code. So we would be, so that's why this is in there, if you wanted to continue in that manner. If obviously we're including any open air appendage just as an accessory structure and not giving it any kind of exemption from the square footage, then we would not need to define it out, because it would not have any kind of special exemption. And then we're talking about limitations on accessory buildings. This is all the information that we have on accessory buildings. This is where the limitation on the 200 square feet in gross floor area for a pool house. So this is when you get the pool house with the allowing plumbing. So here are some of the the first proposals in all of these were to basically codify the exceptions that the planning or the building department has been using. So this one would allow to have the just an open air appendage as an example. And it has language in there to limit what you can use in an accessory building. The second proposal has
Can I just ask you, do we define open air in another section of the code? Because I can envision, you know,
that's what's proposed. It is right now, it's right now just defined as patio or porch or screen porch. And so if we were to include that exception, this would be the definition I would propose, or at least this is the beginning structure of it.
Well, a question I have is, a lot of porches have, windows that can open, right, and then you can close them off, and they're, right, it's still basically open air, but it's more of a room. And I'm
right, and that's why this says that that is permanently open on all sides of the structure, unless it legally shares one wall with a dwelling or an accessory structure. And a side that is framed to accommodate screens is permanently open unless the frames are also fitted to accommodate windows or other impermeable materials.
Okay, so we've eliminated that as a possibility.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Or if it has the accordion,
I think. Not
accordion. I think I missed a few. There's a few letters missing there. Okay. sliding doors. That's not considered permanently open. So that was one way to go with this, was to have an open air appendage exemption to the 5-foot separation. But it sounds like the board it likes to do the limitation of the 600 square foot. And that would be our second proposal here. This is like a menu. I'm trying to give everybody an option.
Yeah.
So the second proposal would be under that doesn't allow, this would allow for a gross floor area of a pool house, because it's 20, this says that you can have an open air appendage, and it will not exceed 600 square feet. This would allow for the pool house to have, the only way to go beyond that 200 square feet would be the pool house could have up to 600 square feet as long as the additions to that additional 400 square feet was only open air appendages and not closed appendage.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
So that was an idea to do it that way, so that you avoid a potting shed that suddenly turns into something
okay,
else.
I like that. That's good, Nancy.
But you could have an outdoor kitchen, a fairly elaborate outdoor kitchen.
You could, and those patio kitchens, those are they are more elaborate, and they have been built up on patios everywhere. As long as they're open, and we had considered, as you can see in this language here, the fireplaces or grills are only permitted in open air appendages, so that they can't be walled in, they can't be windowed in and become indoor kitchens. I know that there are, question of whether or not you want to limit whether or not fireplaces and grills could have roofs over them. But there are plenty of people who, want to be able to grill when it's raining out. So that is a common design that many homeowners are looking for. But we did want, right now there's no prohibition for fireplaces to not be inside these accessory structures. So people are building pool houses with fireplaces inside. And that has been of concern for the building department because of obviously the safety concerns. And so this language in paragraph D that I'm proposing, and this is just one example, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but would not allow for accessory structures to, make it very clear. You cannot contain sleeping quarters, a kitchen, or nor have any interior installed cooking appliances. And fireplaces and grills are only permitted in open air appendages, and only if they meet all the fire and safety code requirements. Allowing for pool houses to have only one food preparation appliance, such as a cooler, refrigerator, or laundry appliances, but limiting the number of we do that limitation in artist studios and some of other structures to limit so that use cannot be overblown. So these are some suggestions of ways in order to allow for a more of a definition of habitable areas, and also limit what accessories can be in there, to really make clear the intent of the town, that we're don't want to be creating new dwelling space outside.
Any other comments or questions for Nancy Lynn? There's
yeah, go ahead, Kathy. You haven't said anything.
I just wanted to ask, when you talk about kitchen or any interior installed cooking appliances. So kitchen, I could still have a refrigerator or a wine fridge?
In a pool house, yes.
What about a microwave?
That would be a cooking appliance, so no.
Okay.
And that's been in the code for a long time. That's not new.
Yeah, the cooking appliances we've kind of had in order for their each, we're single family, so you're allowed one
right
kitchen. So once you get into that, I mean, you know, you want to have a coffee maker, a Keurig machine in your artist studio. That hasn't been an issue. Once you have several, you know, you have a hot plate and you have the fire, you know, you have the microwave, and then you now have a small refrigerator and sink and everything else. You're starting to create a kitchen.
But Nancy Lynn, does the code allow for an outdoor kitchen?
Yes.
Okay.
Code allows not only for an outdoor kitchen, it allows for an indoor fireplace in accessory buildings right now. Which
we're discussing actually limiting that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only having them in a open air setting.
In an open air appendage. I think that was something that was raised by Anne as the building inspector, that she's been very concerned. When they're interior in accessory buildings, she doesn't have the same authority to, she asked for them to put up carbon monoxide detectors and fire smoke detectors, but because they're accessory buildings and not considered habitable space, it's hard for her to require that. And yet here we are with, you know, very dangerous.
Right. That's probably the greatest concern. And we know that some tragic accidents in the past.
Yeah.
As Jeff alluded to earlier, but any other questions for?
Yeah, Nancy Lynn, is there a definition for habitable versus livable? Are they one and the same?
They are considered right now under our code the same. And we can flesh that out a little bit more. Right now, it's floor area of habitable or livable space. And this is what we currently have, the area in square feet of all floors in any dwelling unit. You know, it excludes all porches, patios, garages, breezeways, terraces, and other attached and detached accessory buildings or structures are excluded from habitable or livable. I think this is a good place for us to put some of that language in about conditioned space, about, you know, what the town feels is habitable and non-habitable space. And we have a definition that we can certainly flesh out and put more language in there to give guidance to people that we are trying to, you know, for safety reasons, obviously. And we can borrow from what's in the state fire code. We can use language that is under conditioned space. All of those are good resources for us to, you know, borrow from and change our definition to be very clear what we're talking about.
So part of my question is, if you have a 600 square foot habitable office space, then it should be counted as floor area.
Yeah, but we don't.
You are habitating it. You are living in it, and you are writing your book or doing something that, you know, you think you need to be separated from. It's a habitable space.
Right now, you're kind of describing an artist studio, an author's artist studio. Under our definition right now, that's excluded because that's an accessory building or structure that's excluded from habitable or livable floor area.
Well, the one that we saw that Anne had that was, you know, practical, and she had it said office.
Yes.
And it had living area. It had like a sofa put in. I mean, that's habitable space. It should be, we need to make a decision, I think, on what that means. This is excluding that as floor area.
Yeah, our code right now excludes it from your habitable space and your dwelling space and considers it accessory. Our code right now says artist studios or pool houses, even if they have couches and everything else, are still accessory and not habitable area. it will, that's a significant change in our code because there is obviously greater limitation on that.
It also raises a problem that you could have a study that's habitable space, and then somebody could come in and go, well, I'm going to attach a 200 square foot pool house to that space. And I mean, that could be 600 square feet. That's habitable space, but the pool house is pool house space. And then I'm going to attach 200 more square feet on the other side.
Well, we're not attaching anything. Is what we're trying to separate 5 feet so nothing can be attached.
Other than a porch or a patio?
Other than an open air appendage. Correct.
So it might be that we have to create a definition for accessory square footage, basically, because when you're talking about patios, porches, pool houses, and open air kitchens, they may not be habitable space, but they would be accessory space limited to 600 square feet total.
So we are, there's a lot here to digest and a lot to think about. And Nancy Lynn, you've done a great job putting this together and giving us plenty to think about. And I would suggest that at this point, 2 hours in, that we adjourn this portion, continue to look it over and consider what changes you think we should make, and we'll reconvene on this topic at a future time.
Okay. And Nancy Lynn, I'll be happy to work with you on what I heard today. Yep. And so we can have, and you can write it so that it's legalese, and I appreciate the effort you put into this, and be happy to work with you on it.
Okay, I'll incorporate what I heard today into a new draft and circulate that to you, and keeping our options open where we still have some questions here.
Yeah, we can eliminate some things now.
Yep.
So we can tighten this up, and we can maybe present it as legislation at the next one.
No
Great.
problem.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Nancy Lynn. And do we have any callers on the line right now, Michael?
No, we do not. We don't have any callers.
Okay, let's move on then to our next agenda item, which is amendments to the solar code. And John Jelnicki is going to walk us through those suggested.
Okay. This is going to be much briefer than your other discussions.
Promises.
Okay, we'll hold you to that.
There we go. That's not what I wanted. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that. I was going to try to share the text with you, but I'm not having any luck picking up the document I want. So let me try again. What's going on? Why can't I get back to this now? I don't know why I can't get the right document there.
Which one are you looking for, John?
I was looking for the first I was going to do the solar disconnect. I think I emailed it to everybody, but.
So I'm sorry, which one? The one 255.11.72 height, or?
No, well, we can do that one. That's fine.
Or 102-30.
102.30 was the one I was going to do.
Okay, I can share my screen. I have.
Okay.
John, you got to stop sharing. I'll do it.
It's the first time I tried. Obviously, it's hard to practice unless you have somebody.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter.
All right.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
So basically, this is the existing code. This is our fast track permit provision in the building code, which provides for sort of an expedited permit for solar equipment. And if you scroll down to the bottom, Peter, there's a provision in there that talks about a disconnect switch. And if you see the area that's in italics, that's what we're proposing to add. Right now, we have a requirement for an AC disconnect switch mounted on the outside of the structure, but modern panels actually have a converter built into the panel that converts the DC into AC current. And so if you have that on the panels, there's not a need for a disconnect switch to be mounted on the outside.
Right.
And so the building inspector and the industry has kind of asked for this kind of a revision. So this is the proposed language, just to add that.
Any questions or comments on that? That
No,
seems like a-
good to go. Thank you for
Okay.
bringing that.
Then if you want to pull up the 255 provision.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
255, 1172.
That's the solar height. And this was revised based on discussions with some of the installers. So all the way at the end, this is all, again, existing language that has exceptions to the height. And this part is the proposed new addition, which just allows the installations to be placed on roofs that are maybe at max height when you have a flat roof. And this allows them to pierce that maximum height up to 10 inches beyond the roof surface. That's what we've been told by some of the installers is all that's needed to be able to mount these panels and tilt them to the appropriate height to optimize their production. So the addition is basically going to allow 10 inches above the roof surface, but still you can't violate the pyramid code in doing that. So that's really the only change here. It's pretty simple, and it'll address those issues where, you know, most of the flat roof structures are at maximum height under the code already. So they'd have to go a little higher if they put the panels on and they have to tilt them. So we give them another 10 inches, which is our understanding is sufficient height.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's only 10 inches.
I was as well. I had
I thought that you needed to have something close to like between 35 and 42 degree angle on the panel to maximize it. But
yeah,
I'll defer to the installers on that. The other thing is that, you know, to keep in mind is that flat roof buildings are limited to, I believe, 26-foot height, whereas a gable structure is 30
and up to 35, depending on the size of the property it's located on. So yeah,
Right.
flat roof structures are of a much lower
So
height.
you can see this really doesn't, you know, sort of go well beyond what the flat roof limitations are, and certainly don't even come close to approaching what a gabled roof would allow.
That's right.
I'm fine with those changes. Any other comments or concerns or questions from anyone
No,
else?
I'm fine.
Okay, so we'll put those in form to notice, and we can notice them at the next meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, John. You were true to your word.
Yeah, there wasn't much to talk about on those.
Yeah, that's great. And Michael, do we have any callers on the line?
Yes, we do. We have a caller with the last 4 digits of their phone, 7829. I'll unmute that now.
Great, thanks.
Hello, caller with the last 4 digits, 7829. You're live with the town board. Hello, caller. Are you there? Your signal's pretty poor. Could you try that again?
Yeah, this is Mike Martinson calling in. I'm wondering if you can hear me.
We can now. Thank you.
Mike, don't worry.
Okay, you can hear me now. Great.
Yes. Hey, Mike.
Good.
Oops. Lost him.
Excuse me, Mike. We're having trouble hearing you. Can you try again?
Yep. It's going to get better in a second. For a little bit. Let me know if I really get better.
Not really.
Mike, I'm sorry you got a really
Okay.
bad connection. And if you're not calling about the lack of cellular service, you probably should be. Wherever you are, there's obviously a gap in service.
Long time. So, you hear me better?
Yeah.
So send us an email or try calling back in on a landline. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Do we have any other callers on the line?
Yes, we do have another caller with the last 4 digits, 8764. I'll unmute that now.
Good afternoon. It's Dave Buddha. It's a very busy day today with school elections, tax grievance day, and your meeting. But I did take a look at your agenda, and I noticed something, and I wanted to make a comment. I guess later in the meeting, I've not been watching. I assume you have not done the resolutions yet. Later in the day, in the meeting, you will consider proposed resolution 2021-605, which is the town board considering to approve a stipulation of settlement and release in connection with litigation commenced by the town against Ocean View Terrace Hotel, which concerns the Maram facility in Montauk. My question is, for those people who might have a particular interest, neighbors who have been interested in following the litigation, it certainly would have been beneficial if the town had provided access to that proposed stipulation, so that if they had any concerns or disagreements or questions about it, they could comment on it during this meeting before you adopt it. That is what the revision to the Open Public Meetings Law does provide, that when available, documents to be acted upon be available. Now, of course, there's deadlines involved, and litigation is always difficult to coordinate. And this item just popped up on the agenda, I believe, at the last minute. So I've sent out a FOIL request and an open public meeting request for a copy of the stipulation, which I would appreciate receiving. I assume you will favorably act upon that, and that there will be no surprises in it. But just for general procedures for the future, if you're going to take an action concerning litigation of public concern, and you're at the point where the town board has discussed it in executive session, is ready to consider adopting a resolution, it would behoove you to make that available before you actually sign on the dotted line. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, David. Do we have any other callers on the line?
No, we do not. There are no more callers.
Okay. I think at this point then we can move on with the agenda, our last agenda item. John's going to give us just a brief overview and update on the Army Corps of Im's PPA, as well as I believe we also have a little bit more movement on the Montauk Inlet project as well. And John, if you could talk about the easements with them.
Sure.
I think initially there was some, I think that the Corps had thought that there were as many as 15 different easements necessary. I believe that number's considerably less after we went and looked through the existing easements that we have. I think we're down to really only requiring something like 5 additional easements. And I see we're joined with Aram Tuchurian, who's been our coastal advisor here and has been instrumental in helping us present our case before the Army Corps with regarding FIMP, which is the major sand-only replenishment project of 450,000 cubic yards of sand for downtown Montauk. So, John, I'll turn it over to you if you want to just give us an overview of what the Corps is going to be looking for from us, and update us on those easements.
Sure. Well, basically, the general project, it's Fire Island to Montauk Point, and as far as the town of East Hampton is concerned, it's a sand replenishment beach rebuilding project. Aram, jump in at any time if I misstate anything. Within the Montauk area, we have, with regard to the Montauk Stabilization Project, we obtained a good number of easements previously from the property owners along the beach. There is a need for additional easements further to, I believe, to the east of the area that we have existing easements. However, when we look through the property records, it does look like it's a little less than we had originally thought, because we have acquired additional properties, and I think we've narrowed it down to about 5 different properties we'll need more easements from. But we'll confirm that. We're in the process of just kind of working through it to make sure that we cover everything and don't miss anything. But it's going to be a few more properties we'll need to get easements from. We'll have to approach the property owners and explain to them what the project's about. And first step would be to see if we get a voluntary agreement from the property owners to work with us to rebuild and restore the beach.
Yeah, John, to that particular point, I mean, if you're an oceanfront property owner in that location and we're talking about sand-only replenishment, I would expect that the property owners would actually be quite delighted to know that the beach in front of their house is going to be widened and elevated with sand.
Yeah, I would think so, because really it's and with that comes the responsibility which falls on the town afterwards. Once this project is done and completed, there's an obligation on the town's part to do monitoring and inspection at least yearly and more frequently in the event there's storm events in between, and to do profiles of the beach and photographs. And the town is responsible for maintaining the beaches, repairing them, rehabilitating the beaches in the event there's some damage. We'd have to do grading, remove debris. We also have to prep at least annually a report that's shared with would go to the state and the Army Corps. And that's an ongoing obligation on the town's part.
And we're currently doing that. So this is really would just be a minor extension with regard to the O&M and the reporting requirements, very similar to what we're already doing with the Emergency Stabilization Project. So nothing really new there.
Right.
And Mr. Supervisor, just to point out, you wouldn't have to add additional sand. It would be more regrading and reshaping as opposed to bringing in fresh sand. That the additional sand would be part of the ongoing federal, state, local cost shared responsibility.
And as I understand it, the replenishment cycle on this project is 4 years at 400,000 cubic yards. Is that correct, Aaron?
That's correct.
While we certainly have been pushing to get this project and to get the timeline moved up, initially looked like it was going to be 3 years. We're still working on that effort, and Aaron has been involved in some of those discussions with us, with the Corps and the DEC, about trying to get that moved up. And I think we appreciate and understand that this is not a long-term solution. This is a solution that will give us hopefully as much time as we need to make those other long-term arrangements in terms of adapting to a changing coastline and future zonings and transfer development rights and all of those aspects that were spelled out in our Hamlet plan regarding coastal issues for Montauk.
And of course, the continued public access to the beaches is a part of this program. So there's not an expectation, and I don't think it's part of any proposal here, that any private property to which public access is not permitted would be included. If that would be something that the feds and the state won't share in cost for. I don't think that comes into play, frankly, in the project that we're contemplating. And of course, the town has to hold the federal government harmless in relation to the project as far as design and construction and anything related to it, except for their own negligence or the negligence of the contractors. So that's been in every agreement with the federal government that I can recall. That's just one of their requirements for doing a project like this. So we should be aware of it, but we were certainly aware of it in the past when we had issues related to other structures that were built many, many years ago. And that provision came up in the agreements that the town executed with the federal government some 50 years or plus ago. But that's kind of all of it. There are provisions in the event that we can obtain easements voluntarily, and we work if there was a need to acquire them. There are provisions for reimbursement of the town's costs. There are some provisions in the agreement that there are situations that could arise if it's not pursued fully in compliance with the process they laid out, and we end up paying more than we had estimated the cost of acquisition to be. We could be on the hook for certain costs, but I've spoken with our condemnation counsel about how to deal with that, and there is a way to handle that in the acquisition process, should we have to go that route. Now, we were very fortunate in the last stabilization project to be able to get the easements by way of voluntary agreement of the owners.
I have one question about in terms of timeline, and I know that generally what happens with the Army Corps is that we wait months and they come to us and then they give us days to respond. I see Aram nodding his head, and I know there's interest, and this is a huge project that encompasses something like 82 miles of coastline, and every single municipality within that jurisdiction, as well as the county, all have to sign on. Is that correct, Aram?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so I know there's some, I think, urgency on the Corps' part. The chief's report's done, and that things have moved to the point where they want to get the PPAs signed on to and be able to put the project out to bid. So you all have copies of that PPA that have been circulated. I believe, John, you circulated those to everyone. So I think, we'll take further look and go through line by line those agreements and have to have everybody's comfort level moving forward. And at the same time, we're going to continue to lobby and make it known to the Corps that, we already have a project with them that, that we were told FIMP would come on the heels of, and that we wouldn't be on the hook for replenishment. We've just finished our annual beach replenishment, and this year it was in excess of $700,000. It's about $767,000. That work's now been complete. It looks great. The beach is in good shape for the summer, but and that's shared with the county on a 50-50 basis. But I think it's really important that we move to the next phase that was promised to us as soon as possible. So we're going to continue pressure and put forward our request to get this done in the earlier cycle rather than waiting for 2023. So
I just have one question for John and Aram. Did we make sure that in the PPA that we added on the potential of adding on other locations such as Ditch Plains on this? I know we had to do it now prior to it. We don't have to do it in the end, but we had to put it within the PPA. Is that being requested?
There is a section in there for the betterments that you're seeking that could be implemented. We talked about a couple of different ways to get sand over to Ditch Plains. What we have not figured is how much sand that the town may want. If now is the time to put that in, and we can calculate.
We have the option to do so.
Yeah, well, I think we need to give them a rudimentary plan that just basically involves extra sand that would be placed in downtown Montauk, and I think the least expensive way to get it there is by off-road truck to get it over to Ditch. I think that's what we had spoken about at our last meeting. So we can calculate that yardage and place it into the agreement.
And it doesn't mean that we are stuck to that, but at least we held that option if we decide at that moment. And too, we're not committed, and I still would support moving forward on that as the option now, because we won't be able to do it at a later moment.
That's a good point, David. I know we've had discussions, consideration of doing that and hedging our bet. and erosion. Any other questions or comments?
Just on the issue of timing, concurring with the supervisors, they take months and expect days. But we are bumping up against a deadline that the Army Corps requested of us, which is the 31st of May. And the advantage to the town is that getting the project, the first year's project, which are going to be Fire Island Inlet, and Robert Moses, and Mauritius Inlet, executed this year, is one of the things that gives us a path to us getting our project moved up by 1 year. Because if the Corps gets delayed in this dredging season, they're still going to go back to Fire Island and Mauritius Inlet as their initial projects, and that will cost us time. The other point to bring out is that the town of Southampton has requested that that the Corps consider accepting only the easements required for the area of initial construction, which is some 115 easements, as opposed to 500 easements that the Army Corps initially requested. So to the extent that you're speaking to the Army Corps, I'm underscoring that point that moving forward with the initial construction should only require those easements within that initial construction area, help support East Hampton's case, which is tied to Southampton.
Yes, and we've been doing that, and in addition to that, looking into other alternatives, not directly coupled with that phase of South. I understand that a hopper dredge is necessary for both projects. I believe also the hopper dredge is used for the replenishment at West Hampton. So I'm trying to move that project up to coincide with East Hampton and get us in sooner is certainly something we've made them aware of. Also, with regard to all the other municipalities, when I asked before whether they all have to be in agreement and signed on for the project to go, does that require buy-in from every single municipality, and including the county? And what have you heard about the western towns? Because I haven't had any direct contact with some of those western municipalities.
You are correct. It requires all 5 involved towns, which are Babylon, Islip, Brookhaven, Southampton, and East Hampton, as well as Suffolk County. In all cases, the presiding legislature of each of those entities has authorized the chief executive to sign the contract once it's negotiated. No one has actually signed the contract yet, although I believe that Babylon and Southampton are pretty close, as I believe that East Hampton is. There are some issues that were raised in Brookhaven, not regarding the beach restoration per se, but in Brookhaven, in the Mastic area, there is the elevation of a number of homes that are in the low-lying 10-year floodplain. And so there were some issues that the supervisor was asking for clarification on. I believe those conversations are ongoing and will be addressed in the coming days.
And what about the county legislature?
I met with the Suffolk County Legislative Committee for Public Works about 2 weeks ago. It was a very positive meeting. They asked good questions. They got good answers. They didn't, they didn't assure that they, I think the chair, which is Al Krupski from Southold, seemed very supportive, as did the other members in the committee. And the legislature has paved the way for the county executive to sign, and I believe that's in the offing.
Thank you for that update, Aram. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, thanks so much for joining us today, Aram, and thank you, John. And
thanks, Aram.
Be well, everyone.
You too.
Yeah. And that brings us up to liaison reports.
Great.
Kathy?
So last week, Diane Patrizio, our Director of Human Services, sent around an email to the board talking about us wanting to start up our wellness programs for seniors. The programs have gotten the blessing of Dr. Polsky. We ran everything by him. So starting Monday, June 7th, we're going to be offering meditation at the East Hampton Senior Center outdoors on the basketball courts. And we can accommodate up to 24 people. Reservations and pre-screening are required, and folks should call 631-324-6711. And then we've got a program going with Stony Brook Southampton Hospital. So on Tuesdays, we're going to be offering Healing Circle with flexibility and balance at the East Hampton Senior Center. That starts at 9 a.m. beginning June 1st. And again, we can take up to 24 people. And these programs are free for anyone that's 60 plus. And again, you would need to, call for reservations and pre-screening. And then once we do the healing circles at East Hampton, they'll move on to Montauk and do it out at Montauk. That we've spoken to Iris out there, and there's plenty of room on a patio. We need to just go out and just confirm, with the separation, everybody's going to be wearing masks as well, but how many people we can accommodate. So that program is going to get started June 1st, which is really exciting. And then lastly, on Thursdays, we're going to be offering Qigong with a focus on nourishing inner health and energy. Again, free exercise class open to seniors, adults 60 plus. And that is at 10 a.m. And that is going to be at the East Hampton Senior Center beginning June 3rd. So, things are starting.
Oh, we lost you.
Kathy, you muted yourself.
Lost your audio.
I just wanted to say we're really excited about bringing the seniors back to the center, and the staff is, we're all over the moon about it. So hopefully it's a start that, we'll be able to begin opening other programs as well. I just wanted to say that the community feedback on the location that we announced on Abraham's Path for the new senior center has been extremely positive, and we are now working on a new RFP for the architectural and engineering firms, and we would expect that to go out next month. Last Friday, the Springs Park Committee met, and they've finalized their recommendation. So expect them to get a presentation from the chair of that committee, which is Neil Kraft, at the June 8th work session. Wanted to touch base on Springs Fireplace Road. Folks that, traverse that area knows that there's been construction underway. I'm told the retaining wall is complete. There's still some work to be done, and the paving contract has actually been extended until July 31st. So expect that, that project should be done in the next couple of months. The consultants for the corridor study met. We all got together via Zoom yesterday, and they are going to be ready to come back to the board with an update. And because we need to, particularly rate of bias, we need to get some approval on certain traffic assumptions that he's made so that Peter Flinker can start, modeling the build out. So we are targeting a work session presentation for June 15th. And then Ray, we were speaking to him because we've included 3 Mile Harbor in the, Springs corridor study. We were expecting a reconstruction project there in 2022, but he just confirmed that the word from Suffolk County DPW is that the 3 Mile Harbor reconstruction project has been pushed back until 2024. And then I'm going to have a resolution on for Thursday for special events. We're starting to get, quite a few applications in. One is for OMAC's 5th annual Montauk Mile, which starts out at the Playhouse. We've got give a permit for the Travis Field Memorial Scholarship Fund and softball tournament that gets held at Terry King Ball Field every August. Billy Kalbacher came in for the Clamshell Foundation for the 29th annual Sandcastle contest. So, we're starting to see some normalcy return, which is great. I just wanted to ask David if there's any indication, if you know yet what's going to be happening with the restrooms at the beaches, because folks are putting in applications for special events down there. And I know last year we had them open only during lifeguarded hours, and wanted to know if they were going to be extended into the evening, because folks having, clam bakes down there want to know if there's going to be restroom facilities.
So I was going to mention this a little bit in my liaison report also, but yeah, there's been some not updated guidance changes from the governor, but indications that this guidance on the beaches is going to change. So we are looking at being able to return to normal as far as our opening hours of our bathrooms. Still using additional staffing to be able to do so, and hopefully the frequency of those cleanings are going to be up to par. We're going to be following the guidance of the CDC and still changing up how those bathrooms are going to be used in signage. Unfortunately, as Peter had mentioned earlier with the passing of Susan, there was a little bit of a delay there, but that is our overall intent, is to get our bathrooms back operational to longer hours, particularly evening hours right now.
Okay, that's great to hear. And then lastly, I'm going to have a resolution on for the new tent permit fee schedule, which I believe I sent around on Friday. And it's works in conjunction with the amount of time that goes into, for the fire marshal's office to, review all of these, all of the tents that come through, which are quite a few during the summer season. So that's going to be on for Thursday as well. And that's what I have for today.
Thank you, Kathy. David, you have a liaison report for us?
I do, and I just want to apologize. I meant Sharon, not Susan, Sharon Rack, who unfortunately has passed away, and she was within our custodial department for, I believe, over 20 years, as Peter mentioned, too. So I apologize. Yes, thank you. My liaison reports, Nature Preserve Committee met last week. Unfortunately, I was not able to make the meeting because we were doing a vaccine pod, but they went over their land management, and the stewards are still doing monitoring and encroachment letters of all our properties, trash cleanups. And at this time of the year, they're doing a lot of broken fence repairs. They did that at Sammy's Beach, putting wood chips on our access paths. They're still doing many southern pine beetle inspections on private properties. They repaired did some repairs to Turtles Cove and adding steps to the Palmanox path there, and also at the Weiss property. And they're doing their annual cutout of the Phragmites according to DEC permits over the Mance Rovar property, which, as we know, is over by Oyster Shores. The Nature Preserve Committee discussed three major topics. They passed two management plans that you will see their chairman send them up to the town board for our discussion shortly. Again, we do have a shot clock once they're brought up. One of them is going to be about the Gold Dart property on La Forte, or La Forette, maybe. And the other one is going to be the Amagansett Plains management property management plan, which is the old 555 property then too. I know we discussed this many a times, so please look forward to that. They also discussed, we had a Springs teacher who won a grant, and the grant was for doing a story walk, which is pretty much you would actually put posts in the ground where there would be plot lines for books and stories that kids can walk around the park and read as they're going through. It's been done in many other parks, some on Long Island. And Laura's requested that, potentially using the Pussy's Pond Preserve for doing so. I got to get some more information about that to provide it to the Nature Preserve Committee. They were just discussing it, but in the end, it's a town board decision, and I'll get that to the town board once I get some more information. It does sound like a neat thing. Last week, we had a press conference announcement from the governor about what he would like to see the beaches look like by July 4th. Again, he didn't remove the executive order for last updated from June 2020. But in accordance to that, and to prepare our staffing accordingly, members of our beach advisory committee met, and we're going to put an important notice out for particularly this goes to the junior lifeguarding program for Montauk. This will be onto the town's website by the end of the day today. as of May 12th, the governor announced that beaches and pools, he wanted them to operate with 6-foot distancing to reach their goal of 100% capacity by July 4th. In optimistic anticipation of this change, the town of East Hampton is expanding its junior lifeguarding NIPPER program registration for Montauk. However, as to remain within the current New York State guidance, both of these Montauk offerings will hold their first week in Amagansett and East Hampton beaches. This will be the junior lifeguards ages 9 to 11 at Indian Wells Beach, and ages 11 to 14 at Atlantic Ave Beach, NIPPER guards at Big Alberts Beach, and then move the Montauk beaches starting as of July 4th weekend only if the governor's executive order on the beach capacity is lifted. The beach conditions in Montauk will determine whether the junior lifeguarding program will end up being held at Kirk Park or Ditch Plains Beach. The NIPPER guard program will be held in East Lake at Gin Beach. If New York State does not make the anticipated changes, those families which sign up for the Montauk program will need to request a refund by July 10th, or their children are welcome to remain in the program in Amagansett or East Hampton without a refund. So primarily, we are trying to find out the amount of families that would be interested in the Montauk program in anticipation of our downward trend of our infection rates, which is good news, and making sure our staffing and our infrastructure is ready to go, but understanding that we're only going to make that final decision there if the governor removes his executive order that he still has in place right now. And you can do that online at the town's website under the Parks and Recreation Department. I just heard from the chief lifeguard that Ditch Plains Beach will not be open for lifeguards this Memorial Day weekend. So we will not have as a guarded beach. Instead, we only have South Edison and Kirk Beach in Montauk open for this Memorial Day weekend. The beach conditions do not warrant its safe opening based on the determination from the chief lifeguard. This is primarily based on water runoff and the lack of sand that is on the beach. It is down to hard pan again. They will revisit this determination and conditions on a weekly, if not daily basis to see if that would change. But they get in front of it right now. The anticipation is not to have that beach as guarded for Memorial Day weekend. The Parks Department still needs recreational aides and summer lifeguards are needed. If anyone's interested, please contact the Parks Department at 631-324-4141. Parks Department is also looking forward to the installation of handicapped chess tables that would be going in on an ADA compliant pad. The two locations we're looking at, the Montauk Lions Field and also the Buckskill Meadows. There will be concrete, beautiful chess tables that will be ADA compliant. And I thank the town board for putting that into the capital budget for this calendar year. I want to just do screen share one thing here. Well, it might be two things in the end. I want to screen share this shot here. This is at Maidstone Park, and the yellow and what you can see here is a temporary removable Little League fence that Buildings and Grounds put in. Parks Department, they purchased it actually last year, and we didn't get to use it last year because there was no Little League, but we installed it this year. What it does for the kids, it gives them a goal to hit that ball over, but also keeps it safe and doesn't allow for any balls to go out of the ball field there. So I thank them for putting it in. It will be removed at the end of the season, but that is up at Maidstone Park right now, and I think it looks appropriate. It's working well, and it's at a distance that has been calculated with help from East Hampton Little League. That transitions right into Little League Ball Field Relocation Committee. Just as an update to the board, sir, it's busy up here with special events. I'll do have to say that's why the phone keeps ringing, everyone. The surveys have been completed of the site, and that moving forward with design. There's going to be tweaks to the layout and the design elements that are being done by members of the relocation committee and engineers. And the next step is the engineers are starting discussions with the planning staff about design and next steps for input from planning and the planning board. So that's still out there and moving forward because remember, depending on how fundraising goes, we would have to be ready for potential upcoming season for 2022. In aquaculture, the community oyster growing program is up and operational. I hope everyone's enjoying that. We're looking at developing an aquaculture and mariculture lease program in town waters. this would be places where we could potentially assist with kelp farming and other businesses that have been requesting it. So I'll get some more information to the board upcoming on that. I wanted to let the board know, let the board know that the MTA reached out to me. I don't know if any other board members saw that. They are doing some, I think called Sperry transit work on the trains. And from approximately 10:45 to 3:30 in the morning on today, Tuesday, and also Wednesday, tomorrow, the Montauk branch will be out of service between Babylon and Montauk to the Sperry rail testing. And there will be bus service there. And there will be a large inconvenience of an extra hour and a half, they're stating. Highway, I want to let everyone know that the sidewalk work on Old Montauk Highway, which is about another 1,000 linear feet, is almost complete. They're way past the area where the restaurants are in that area, up by the Hither Plains, and it's almost complete. They're still finishing up some work there, but it looks nice. A lot of people are using it, and it's much safer. I wanted to also, Lynch has been looking and analyzing the corridor of Stephen Hand's Path recently, and then also looking at Cedar Street. And he wants to see if he can move forward potentially with a trial program of a traffic flow in this area. I'm just going to show something that he sent over to me, and we can discuss this in greater length. But as on first blush, he's interested in making Stephen Hand's Path in this area a one-way street. And then bringing the traffic through detours up Cedar Street to make a left on Old Northwest Road. He's finding there actually, I guess there was just another accident there. I think he stated either yesterday or the day before. That this negative 45-degree corner here, lack of people using traffic signals in this area has become a public safety issue, and he's interested in seeing about if there's a simple, safe, effective, cost-efficient way of changing the traffic patterns there might actually increase public safety on there. So I'll forward this around to the board for discussion. We could discuss it with Steve and potentially put it on for initial discussion. And his trial we'd like to do for 2 to 3 months, which would probably encapsulate the summer season, and just to keep monitoring it to see if it's something that would be cost effective of doing. And then if it is, potentially then add on more turning lanes if needed in that area. Let me see here. Let me just keep getting back to the report. I want to thank CCUM. I went out to the installation, and Peter, I believe you were there just a little after I was. Installation of the floating wetlands there. I took my daughter out there. She got some community service hours, which was great. Again, this project was funded by the Water Quality Improvement Funds from the CPF, so I thank the board for doing so. It was a beautiful day. That's where my dark skin and fried skin is. But it's interesting. They're installed. They're going to be growing out. It's a pilot program, and I look forward to seeing how it might help decrease nitrogen and phosphorus into the Lake Montauk. Sorry, it's not Lake Montauk, Fort Pond out there. But I thank CCUM for inviting me. And it was a nice afternoon spent with my daughters, more specifically.
Hey, David, I just have a couple photos I can share.
Yeah, please.
Of that. So this is Laura Tuman of CCOM, and you can see the floating mat in the background. This is what was planted up, and then we drag the mats out. Every one of these little holes has a little aquatic plant, and as it sits in the water floating, moored in various locations, there's 2 areas, one in the northeast section of the pond up towards Surf Lodge, and then the other's the southwest down towards Second House. And these plants will continue to grow and take up nitrogen from the waters of the pond. It's a very interesting idea. And while it may not have a really super significant uptake of nitrogen, it certainly draws attention to and demonstrates the different ways that we can help protect our local ponds and waters. This is really I think one of the aspects that we have to focus on. It's not just eliminating the inputs of nitrogen, but it's also improving the capacity of our local waters to deal with nitrogen, which is absolutely necessary. And for me, it was great to get back out on the old the old Sharpie. I built this Sharpie about 30 years ago for Tom Lester. And when Tom passed away, Kathy Lester, who was then supervisor, donated it to the town aquaculture program, and they've used it ever since. It was the first time I'd been on the boat in probably 25 years. So fun to see Kate Rossi Snook operating the boat. Great seamanship, and that's Patrick there, a volunteer as well.
Nice.
That was all good stuff.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be great benefit to it, and again, being part of this pilot program out here, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how effective they are. It is, and I commend CCOM for doing so, and also all the volunteers. And again, as I said, it was just nice to be my older daughter. You don't get that as much anymore.
Great.
Yeah. We also in Montauk, we ran a COVID vaccine pod out of Montauk this past Thursday. Very happy that we had Southampton Hospital assist with that. I know that there was a great turnout there. It was nice to see a lot of individuals from the service industry show up, and it was I think we gave 129 doses out in the 4-hour time frame out there, and again, small pod doses. I believe we're going to look forward to doing that also in Springs upcoming next week. Peter, you might have some more information about that. And Kathy, I think we might have discussed that maybe at the food pantries also. But again, the town of East Hampton is still going to continue to get into our, bring the vaccine out locally into the small areas. Please walk up. If you know anyone, please continue to do so. So again, the Montauk pod was extremely successful there too, using it. It was nice to see some old faces and a lot of new faces in there. It really worked well. So again, Peter, I thank you very much for bringing that together from the hospital and working with the hospital and the hospital's team then too.
Thanks for joining us out there to help out. It's a great effort. I'm glad to see, you know, it was so well received by Montauk residents, and a lot of people turned out.
Good.
Lastly, I have buildings and grounds. Weekend trash collection will be starting this weekend. I know we received some issues with people at places where there's some overflowing trash cans, but weekend trash collection is starting this weekend. And I would say, please continue using the trash cans. Don't throw trash on the ground. Push it down if you need to, or also if you're a business, you might want to also assist us with our litter collection by putting your own trash cans out there. But that will be starting. Again, I have it right here, Kathy, as you brought it up. Bathroom times, we're looking to extend them to be within CDC guidance. And I'm going to try to see if we can get that moving forward before Memorial Day, knowing that this is our last meeting prior to last work session prior to Memorial Day. I also want to just let the board know that the town's first ever electric lawnmower is now actively being used. It's being used at Town Hall and other areas. And the crews are testing it as far as their charge lengths to appropriately decide how the mower could be put into service, on the daily service schedule. And talking to some of the individuals of the lawn who's particularly using it, says it's a very powerful machine, quiet machine, and effective machine. So I'm happy the town board moved forward with that recently, and it's that purchase. And with that, that's my my liaison report. I let the board know that I will be on the meeting on Thursday, but I won't be in my office. I have to go assist my family on the Outer Banks with some family issues. So I will be away, but I will still be present as best I can.
Right. You're on mute, Peter. I don't know, maybe.
Thank you, David. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to start with business recovery. It's usually due. Southampton Hospital has 0, as of last Wednesday, 0 COVID patients, and it's been that way. As of last Wednesday, it was 3 days they had 0 patients. Eastern Long Island also has 0 patients. And Stony Brook has 45 patients, 23 are in ICU. Southampton Hospital has given out over 66,000 vaccine doses. So we really thank them for their efforts in all of this. Last week, I talked about I said June 5th was the last day of testing at the high school. I was corrected. It's June 15th is the last day of COVID testing at the high school. There will still be testing here at Town Hall and in Montauk. We discussed issues of getting ready for the summer, and any town permits that were needed are updated. Some of the businesses are having an issue with trying to find employees for the summer. And they were also very grateful, since they had asked for Montauk to have received vaccines, that they were able to get them. And thanks again to Peter for doing it, and to the hospital for working together with the town to get vaccines for folks out in Montauk. It was really important for them to get a lot of their workers vaccinated, and they did not want to come over the stretch, and they were nervous. And we did it at an hour where it was 4 to 8, so that folks could possibly get off of work, even though we know that you're supposed to be able to get off work to get a vaccine. Some of these folks didn't want to do that. So I thought the timing was great, and it sounds like the turnout was great. So that's what we're been really proud to be able to do. We did get an email from a businessman that said he really hopes that people will continue to wear masks when they're indoors. He had over 1,000 folks visit his store this past weekend, and he was very grateful that most of them, if not all, actually, I think if I go back and read his email, all of them may have worn masks, and he thinks that that's still important for the community to embrace if you're indoors, that especially in shops that are small, particularly mom and pop stores that are in Montauk are small stores. And so you kind of want them, people to mask up. The Anti-Bias Task Force also met. We're working on a new diversity show, and it would be done by the 2 high school seniors. We have a high school senior, Kevin Chabla, that's on the Anti-Bias Task Force. And Kevin is going to interview another senior, Aubrey Peterson, and talk about COVID issues at the high school, how people went through that as teenagers, issues that were raised. They also talk about diversity in the high school. So looking forward to getting that filmed and out. Kevin Chabla will be leaving the task force, sadly, for us, but he was accepted by Yale University. So it's really such a great tribute to our public school system and to the folks that are there. Kevin has been a great addition to the task force, bringing us some really good energy and good ideas. He will be missed, but we certainly wish him best of luck in his new adventure. Let's see, we hope to have an updated brochure for next month. We probably won't have it ready for the town board until maybe first part of July. It's new, and it'll have a new look, and I hope an energetic look. We're also had a discussion on expanding mental health help on the South Fork and in East Hampton in particular with professionals. There seems to be some concern that, through our police envisioning that we did, that some of the mental health issues seem to be something that's floated to the top, that we need to have help for mental health in conjunction with our police department, so that they can also help understand mental health issues. Sometimes don't happen until 2:00 in the morning when you've got someone that may need help. And so we're trying to see if there's a way that we could somehow push that up a little bit. This is really coming from the police chiefs, particularly Mike Tracy, who finds that the police need some help in the mental health issues. The Community Housing Opportunity Fund also met. We had an extensive report by Katie Casey as the committee is trying to consider what types of options in affordable housing should the town be considering for land that it already owns and earmarked for affordable housing projects. So she gave a really good presentation to us on single family, multifamily, rental or condo, and the pros and cons for each of them. So it's a report that I'm going to send to all the town board members. Well done, well researched. It also gives numbers of, what our rental situation is and how much money you can charge for certain rentals based on income. Let's see. So we were looking at this really actually based on just the Phillips property, which we were considering, which types of housing we need to look at the Phillips property, which is located on Panago. The development, she also had another written document about wastewater and which properties could fit wastewater management well within certain districts of, how big does a package plant have to be for rental, and how big does is it smaller for single family? And so it's a well done document, and I really thank Katie for that. We also had an update on the 3 Mile Harbor project. The Housing Authority with their partner, Georgia Green, is developing an apartment rental complex there. Lisa DeAndrea and Eleni Nicolopoulos from the Planning and Natural Resources Department walked the property to help with best siting, talking about, it's on 14 acres, where we needed to have fencing, so that and where the areas are that are most sensitive. So I appreciate their involvement in this project. There is concern about the pilot program, which is called Payment in Lieu of Taxes for the project. The director of the Housing Authority was under the impression that the town board was aware of who and how the payments are agreed on, but this has not been discussed by any of the town board. So I'll bring this forward and hope the town board, we should talk about how this is going to happen. I know, Jeff, you're the liaison to the authority, but this important information was never given to us. So this was the first that we had heard about it, was on this call just last week. So it would certainly, help the project along if they knew where the town stood on the issue of taxes for the project. The Energy Sustainability Committee also met. They had an update on town issues from Lauren Steinberg and Natural Resources. Kim Shaw, the Director of Natural Resources, was also there. The New York Stretch Code, we've had a work session on it, and we've had 2 work sessions on it. It will be researched at the town board. There were a few minor changes before we bring it to public hearing that you need to consider. They were mostly clarifying issues that needed more clarity. 2 significant RFPs are going to be going out soon. One for rooftop solar arrays on town buildings, particularly in the sanitation department, and an RFP for a consultant to help the town with a roadmap to our 100% renewables. This would include kind of getting us a current baseline of our greenhouse gas and our greenhouse gas inventory. We have metrics, action items, and scenarios of how we would reach our 100%. There was a long discussion about the airport, and they're anxious, I think, to hear from the environmental consultant and from the planning department before they make any comments on giving the town board advice or consideration for what should happen at the airport. Stop days, which is stop throwing out pollutants, is June 26th. And I know this is early to be considering it, but since it is spring time, a lot of us clean out areas in our house where we may have things that could harm our groundwater. So last year, only 150 plus people went to the town board, to the town recycling center to get rid of these things that if you pour them on your driveway down a drain, this is what's polluting our water supply. So please do the right thing and think about collecting all these things together. And on June 26th, between 10 and 2, you can take them free to the town recycling center for proper disposal of these items. And last, I know David talked about our electric lawnmower that we now have for the town. The leaf blower legislation takes effect on May 20th, and then it ends again for gas-powered leaf blowers on September 20th. I know this is going to be, what I would call, a rollout that I'm sure, just as the town has not received their electric leaf blowers yet, So we are hoping that everybody is patient. And I know that you may have folks that or landscape companies that are still using them, but please be patient. They may not know particularly that this has started on May 20th or take account of it. So I would hope that you can talk to your own landscape guy that's there, that the leaf blower legislation is starting May 20th for electric leaf blowers only. And, it's going to work if we have everybody helping out to make it work. I think it would be impossible, if not very difficult, to have people complain about it. By the time our code enforcement officers got there, they'd probably moved on to the next house. So it would really be helpful if we all get involved in that. If we want a quiet community, I think we have to involve ourselves in making sure it's a quiet community. So be patient as we roll this out. And I appreciate that we have this in place right now. So anyway, that is my report.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jeff, do you have a report for us?
I wanted to start with the airport, which may be one of the less welcome signs of the season coming on us. On Friday, we had a total of 187 complaints from airport noise, 107 of them from helicopters. That's quite predictable. 22 from jets and 42 from props and a few other stragglers there. So the season is probably going to ramp up and be a busy season with many more complaints. I wanted to talk to you about a great event coming up on LTV. Ladles of Love is doing a remote benefit concert, which sounds terrific. It'll be Thursday night, 6 to 8. It is John Kawalenko of The Art of Eating who is sponsoring it. 30% of the donations will be divided among band members who have been out of work. 30% supports venues that have suffered, and 40% of the donations support East Hampton, Montauk, Amagansett, Sag Harbor, Wainscott, and Montauk food pantries. So they've got a tremendous lineup of folks, and they're going to do the show in half-hour segments, starting with the Talk House session with Nancy Atlas, Johnny Blood, Brett King, PJ Delia, Inda Eaton, Gene Casey, a lot of great folks that we all know. The Hoodoo Loungers from Bay Street Theater, and Ladles of Love was 2019 at the Talk House, and it wasn't held last year because of COVID. They raised about $19,000, and it sounds like a great good time, and it's going to be on LTV, which is also now broadcast on CTV, and they wanted to be careful to run an event that they thought would be safe in a time of COVID, which is why they're doing it remotely. So I encourage everybody to tune in because it'll be a lot of fun.
Jeff, what was the date and time?
It's this Thursday, 6 to 8 on LTV, and it sounds like it's going to be a rocking good show. Mama Lee is one of the groups that I left out as well.
Will they be replaying it?
I assume that they will be replaying it, but I don't have replaying dates yet. But Thursday, 6 to 8, Ladles of Love. You can tune into either LTV or Southampton Cable or stream it online, and donations can be made at the easthamptonfoodpantry.org prior or during the show, which is a great way to raise some money for the food pantry. So glad to share that information. Sylvia, you mentioned that I may not have distributed information on the pilot agreements, but perhaps you missed the emails because this is an issue that the town board has dealt with and has dealt with in some detail some months past. The issue of payments in lieu of taxes is not new, and the Housing Authority brought it up late in 2020. We got an opinion from Jim Ryan. I reported on it to the town board, but you probably forgot. The issue there was how they were going to be negotiated and what liability the town might have if it negotiated the pilot agreements, which on occasion the town had done in the past. But we got an extensive memo, and I sent it around to everyone, you included, And I had to get permission then to disclose it to the housing authority. So everybody knows about this, but it is a complicated issue. We got some legal advice that basically suggested that it was up to the housing authority. The housing authority and the school are the parties. And so the negotiation should be between the housing authority and the parties. The housing authority wasn't tremendously happy about it, but that is what our attorney suggested. And I just wanted to let you know, because you seem to be under the impression that I had not informed the board about that important issue. Speaking of issues that haven't gotten a lot of attention, I wanted to bring one up that might be of interest to you, Sylvia, and that is our lack of action on jumping into community choice aggregation. We have an opportunity to get into this program now. We were about 3 years late in enacting the enabling legislation. We're about 3 years behind the town of Southampton in getting that done. But we now finally did it late in 2020, and it means that we have an opportunity to bring renewable energy to our community today, not next week, not next month, not next year, not several years from now, today. And the news from Southampton is very exciting. They're embarking on the first community solar RFP. That's a request for proposals to build a community solar facility that will act as a community distributed generation facility. And this is a new mechanism of accessing renewable energy in a way that pays the towns much more than they got when we did, for example, our community solar, where we're just getting rent from putting power into the grid. But this comes in under NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And they give us a much more favorable rate. They let us break it out and keep some of the profit. And very interestingly, we can actually distribute credits on electric bills to people that we think are vulnerable populations. For example, if we have elderly, senior, handicapped, people with illnesses, we can actually use community distributed energy to reduce their energy bills. This is the fastest way to jumpstart our reach into the future on renewable energy. And I have to say that I've been speaking about it in favor of it for years, literally years, very politely trying to remind the board, like, let's get moving on it. And Southampton is just doing its RFP. They got 50 respondents who are interested in building that facility for them. And I would certainly like to see more action on community choice aggregation. And I bring it up in the liaison report because it didn't seem to do me any good to bring it up over the last 2.5 years. We should have moved on it. It's unfortunate it took us so long, but we can move now. Southampton is ahead of us. They'd like us to participate. Let's get on board with them. And the last thing I want to mention is I wanted to get back to you, Peter, on the issue of the $3,500 contract, which you gave to a Democratic committee person. I've asked you before for the paperwork on it. Can't find it in town hall. You told me the last time we were here I could have it. I emailed you. You didn't respond to my email. Can I have that paperwork, please, on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I told you could have it. I'll just add that there is no contract. While you voted for it, we don't believe that's now necessary. And again, that was to enable the distribution of vaccine throughout the community. As you know, we've kind of done a piecemeal job of trying to put together a way of registering people and getting that word out. And our town IT department does not actually, I guess, have the expertise and ability to put together a website. So as a backup, we put out a request and we got 2 proposals back. And I think the one that you voted on was for $3,500, but to date, we haven't really needed to use that.
Can we see the proposals, Peter? That's what I've been asking you for.
Yes, you can, Jeff. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, this is the 3rd time I'm asking. I'm doing it in the interest of transparency. I think we should see the proposals.
very transparent, and I
Well, it
appreciate.
wasn't that transparent, Peter. You omitted her name on the first.
Actually, Jeff, it wasn't me that wrote the resolution. It was my staff, and they.
Well, you sponsored it.
I'm sorry, Jeff. They did omit the name, and we corrected that.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see the proposals. That would be helpful. Very helpful.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add one thing. I have to rush off here because I have an appointment that I'm late for.
Sure.
But I wanted to just mention that I had some fun at the Montauk vaccine site where I went up on Thursday. Got to meet a few folks, sat around and kept an eye on people who had gotten the shots and were waiting to see if they had a reaction. Thankfully, they did not. And I was sitting next to Dick Monahan, who was more or less holding my hand because he's the EMT that could actually do something. But along the way, told me a great life story about the transformative power of competitive swimming for this very young 80-year-old guy I was talking to, who's in better shape than most folks I know. So I had a great time there. It was not the first time I've helped out in the vaccines and hope to continue. Peter, you wanted my vest back, but I told you I want to keep it for the next time.
We generally take those back at the end of the day because if we have a shortage, then we can give it to somebody else who shows up regularly.
Well, I'm hanging on to mine. I'm going to be back.
All right. Well,
so I'm gonna sign off now. I've sent the town an email that I have an appointment I have to keep, and I'll jump back.
Jeff, I'm sorry you couldn't stay for my liaison report, but do whatever you need to do, and have a good afternoon.
So I do want to say about the CCA. We know that they had, from what we were told from the Energy Sustainability Committee, 40 respondents to their CCA. And so we're looking into that. We're well aware of what's going on with the CCA and moving forward with that. It took them, 3 years from the time they passed their enabling legislation to finally get an RFP. So, we'll hopefully move a little bit faster. And I'm not the only one on the board that's interested in doing this. You could have helped out a lot, Jeff, if you wanted to move some legislation along.
I've been talking about nothing but for
Talking isn't working, Jeff. Talking is not working. Sorry.
Yeah, I've been very informed on it, and I've been an advocate. Talking does work. Every action we take starts with an idea, Sylvia. And
sorry, you never gave me an email. You never talked to me about helping out.
I talked in public.
We all did it on our own.
When I talk in private, my emails are not answered. Okay.
I think we can move on now. And Jeff, if you need to go to your appointment, please, have a great day. So at this point, I guess I can do my liaison report. It's kind of interesting, though, the discussion about the CCA and the solar. When we developed our solar farm in East Hampton, what Mr. Bragman alluded to was not available to us. We were forging ahead. We had the first megawatt scale solar farm built on the South Fork. And, since that time, NYSERDA has come up with programs. And with regard to the CCA, there are a number of obstacles that still are in place that would keep us from achieving that goal. And they have to do with the requirement of onshore generation. And currently, the way things are set up with LIPA, those obstacles remain. We do hope to get beyond that. We've lobbied to have a better structure to allow us to take advantage, like many other regions in New York can take advantage of the CCA. I'll just start with COVID vaccinations. We do have a number of other clinics coming up, as was mentioned earlier in liaison reports. We had one on 5/13 at Montauk Playhouse this past Thursday, where 129 doses of Moderna were administered. I know David Lease was very helpful in working with Buildings Grounds, and we had IT set up so that our partner, Stony Brook Southampton Medicine, was able to come to the site with everything ready for them. They needed Wi-Fi. I helped register at least 50 folks with the iPads that they put together. I know David, you worked there, as well as my wife, Marilyn. It was great to see people, and I think what was really important about it is there are a number of working people who are coming in the hospitality industry and restaurants. The new staff coming on hadn't had access to vaccine, and this gave them an opportunity to be vaccinated and be safe. And as we move into summer, you know, that's a crucial part of public health here. There'll be another clinic this Saturday, and it's going to be an all-day clinic at the East Hampton Center for Humanity, the former CDCH building. And we're working together with Dr. Gail Schoenfeld, who's acted as our physician on site for all of the Towns pods. She has now gotten access to doses herself as a practice, and with the announcement that children 12 and up can be vaccinated, I think that's the point at which powers that be decided pediatricians could be getting the vaccine. So we're working with her to provide up to at least 1,170 doses will be available. This is going to be an all-day clinic, I think from 7:30 to 7:30. You can pre-register by going to eastendpediatrics.com or by simply just walking in during those hours. This will be Pfizer vaccine, which is the only one approved for children in that age group, 12 and up. The high school and middle school have been sending links to parents so that they're aware of this opportunity to get their children vaccinated. It may be required that children be vaccinated prior to attending public schools in the fall. We don't know that for sure, but the sooner people get vaccinated, the safer we all will be. Also working with Southampton, Stony Brook, to bring a vaccination clinic to Ashwell Hall, tentatively for 5/24. So, you know, we'll update you on social media and whatnot if in fact that gets confirmed, but that's the goal. You know, a lot of the regulations and restrictions regarding COVID, occupancy and whatnot are being lifted as of tomorrow. 5/19 is a big day. Business occupancies now can go back to whatever the fire marshal occupancy is, with the caveat that there's still requirement to maintain 6-foot distancing. And the mask requirements, you know, have been eased. The CDC, excuse me, has now stated that vaccinated individuals do not need to wear masks indoors or outdoors. However, as Sylvia mentioned earlier, there are a number of people who would like those, you know, restrictions stay in place a little bit longer. You know, I think that's out of concern for those who may not have had a chance to get vaccinated yet. Everybody should continue to wear masks indoors, but I don't believe there will be any requirement. That being said, private entities, private businesses can enforce their own restrictions and have their own requirements. At the town hall offices, the clerk's office and tax receiver have been open. The rest of town hall offices will open on the 19th, tomorrow, for in-person. Again, we ask that you wear masks when visiting and keep your social distancing. And we're going to take it kind of slow and just to keep everybody comfortable as we move forward. We're working in the wireless committee to finalize the draft of our poll, which will go throughout the community to get the public's opinions on wireless communications, towers, and the different types of equipment that could be installed to help address our lack and gaps in coverage throughout the community. Also, the contractor that we've hired, the consultants, will also be working on completing the coverage maps to understand where those gaps in coverage are. Those, I believe, are nearly complete. Then at that point, we'll also be working on a comprehensive plan to address those gaps in coverage. and ongoing discussion with the community. There are 2 new towers in town. There's temporary tower at Stephen Hand's Path that's now been activated, as has the AT&T tower at the old brush dump on Old Northwest Road, right behind the new fire substation on that road. Both of those are in our operation. I know that AT&T is in negotiation with other carriers to co-locate, and we have emergency communications that will also be emanating from that location as well. I already talked about the CCOM project, and I think at this point that's all I have. And we have a few resolutions to do quickly, and then I have a hard stop, and we'll schedule a exec session. So Kathy, you have a resolution?
I do. I have resolution 2021-599. It's a promotion for Corinne Wazilius, and Corinne is being promoted from the position of home health aide and appointed on a provisional basis to the full-time position of assistant senior citizen center manager at the annual salary of $49,920 for a 40-hour work week.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry.
I'm excited that Corinne, she's been, basically doing that job all during COVID. So it's great now that she's gotten the recognition and the promotion.
I'd like to offer resolution 2021-600. This is to appoint seasonal employees in the Parks Department at hourly rates for custodial worker 1 and also for a laborer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry.
Resolution 2021-601 is the amendment resolution 2021-591 is where Anna German de Gonzalez and Irma Gerardo were appointed to the position of seasonal custodial worker 1. We want them to be, are hereby appointed to the position of seasonal custodial worker 1 with no change in the hourly rate schedule, effective rate retroactive to May 17th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry.
Resolution 602 is the Buckskill Meadow, the hire contractor for the trail access and parking. This goes into the Buckskill Meadow Transit Management Plan. This is for the multi-user trail and path. And its financial impact is $92,000 coming from the CPF budget line CA 8801-54500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and
Can I
carry.
just ask you, do you have an indication of when, what the timetable is for that project?
I would anticipate that we have the contractor that's going to be doing the sub-base going in there within the next 3 weeks.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yep. I have resolution 603. This is the amended resolution 2021-44 to add petty cash drawer funds to the beaches in the amount of $300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry. Resolution 604 is to appoint full-time administrative assistant in the Parks Department, Florence Stone, and that is retroactive as of May 17th, 2020. No
Second.
change in salary.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 605 is approved stipulation to release Town of East Hampton versus Ocean View Terrace Hotel LLC. This is resolved. The town board hereby approves of the proposed stipulation settlement and release, and hereby authorizes the town supervisor to sign the same on behalf of the town board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
To move into exec session, I move to enter into exec session to discuss our litigation strategy in the case of Sunrise Tuthill, to discuss personnel in the planning and building departments, and to discuss the acquisition of real property and to receive advice from counsel. What time would you like to reconvene?
3:15 or 3:30.
Excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, if I may apologize, but there is a caller. Mike Martinson's called in again.
Okay.
If you want to take that, just because he might have signal now.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
All right. I'll unmute that caller right now.
Hello, guys. I'm trying again. Do you read me?
Yeah, we do, Mike. You just squeaked in under the wire. We're just going into exec. How are you?
Okay. I'm doing well. Thank you guys for all of your work. I know you guys are really doing a lot of great stuff and working hard. And I want to thank you for all the things you're doing for this town. I originally was invited to call in to express support for the balloon work that Susan McGraw-Keeber is doing, and to give some firsthand knowledge on the balloon situation out there. But you guys, I'm sure, are well aware of what's going on with balloons. And thank you for your work. And I wanted to express my support for her and to you. But the real reason I need to call is because I'm up against a really hard time right now with the sale of Rick's Krabby Cowboy Cafe. I've lost the backbone of my oyster farm, and I'm basically on death row. My oyster farm is on death row. Every oyster that I sell now is one step closer towards that chair. Normally, I would put 1 million overwintered seed in the water in March, and I didn't have a place to put it. So I don't have, Montauk Pearl oysters, unfortunately, next year is going to be very much, downsized. And it's going to be a little while before I can recover, no matter what, at this point. I could really use a lease on some bottomland somehow, either through the trustees or through the town. I don't know if that's something you guys can work on.
Well, Mike, that is something that we can look into and try to help you out, but understand that any lease of underwater land has to go through a competitive process, and we can't just assign it. But we can certainly look into moving that forward. I don't know if there are any other interested parties or if any of them would qualify, based on their experience and whatnot. So that's something we certainly can take up. And I'm sorry to hear that you fall in hard times with the loss of your lease.
And we mentioned, actually, even Mike just today, my leads report that we're trying to move forward with those type of process, just not for aquaculture, but also other forms of mariculture then too.
Okay, so what should I do as?
Yeah, I'm happy to have contact with you at a later point, phone call or in-person meeting. We can kind of go over what that process would look like.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Enough said. I really appreciate it. I just wanted you guys to understand where I'm standing. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And best to you, and we'll talk soon.
This sounds good. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah. So back to exec session. We have a motion. We have time. Does 3:30 work for folks?
3:30, yep.
Okay, so we'll reconvene at 3:30. I'll send the link.
I didn't hear who said
We didn't vote, so I'll
Second.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry. Stay safe. Be well, everyone. We'll see you soon.